Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. Welcome to tradertv.live. North American stock futures back in positive territory once again this morning, ever so slightly, coming off that pretty impressive rally we saw on Monday. We had the S&P back in record high territory, although it didn't close in record high territory, just off those levels at the end of the day. The optimism yesterday came after Pfizer got full FDA approval for its vaccine, both BNTX and PFE, higher on the session yesterday. We also talked about that UK information when it comes to their vaccine as well. We had a little bit of a bump yesterday in both the Dow and NASDAQ at the end of the day. The NASDAQ actually led the way 1.5% to the upside, the Dow up about 200 points. The S&P 0.8 when all was said and done. Everyone awaiting Thursday's Jackson Hole Symposium, where we'll get comments from Fed Chair Powell on tapering, or the possibility of tapering. Everyone expecting it to come before the end of this year. More details possibly on that Thursday meeting. So we'll touch on that coming up on Thursday. Chinese stocks in focus this morning, all of them in positive territory. We had JD.com with earnings yesterday that were better than expected. Pinduoduo out this morning. Initially sold off, but right back to the upside. 12.5% here for PDD. And also Best Buy we'll talk about as well out this morning with its second quarter results. Tuesday, August 24th, 2021, tradertv.live starts now. And there we go. Look at how things stand at this point. As I mentioned, positive, but yeah, nothing terribly exciting at this point. 0.08 for the NASDAQ, the Dow 0.13, about the same for the S&P. We're actually in negative territory for TSX futures here in Toronto. Brazil's open up more than 1%. Crude up 1.4%. Remember, big move yesterday for oil markets, so we'll watch that again. Both Bitcoin and Ethereum grinding back to the downside after a pretty impressive weekend move. Good morning, guys. It is Tuesday. Arun back with us again all week long as Sean enjoys a much-needed vacation. Interesting day here, guys. Again, as I said, everyone kind of awaiting the Thursday meeting for Fed Chair Powell, the Jackson Hole meeting, to get any kind of further details as to when this tapering might start. But a number of interesting names setting up here for us this morning.
Yeah, good morning. You can say that again, Brennan. I mean, what a ride! If you've been watching Pinduoduo this morning, what a ride that has been, because you had the entire sector. You had all the Chinese tech names that are listed here just gapping to the upside, and some were like 5%. A lot were in the 8 to 10% range. Pinduoduo was up there, up at 11%. Dropped earnings, felt like an absolute rock. There was just no bid in sight. Comes right back to the top and is again rolling over at. I mean, this is like right at $90 when it flushed the first time, and now it's kind of immediately doing it again. This is all on relatively thin trade, even though the volume is there. So there's going to be some movers today. Obviously, that's going to be the case, and it's hard to get away from trading in some of these Chinese names. But let's not forget, we're looking at AMD was a good trade in yesterday's action. Nvidia was a big time mover. So some of those tech plays are still going to be right there for us, guys. And yeah, I'm kind of sitting in a penny stock, so going back to my roots there, that BXRX. I think like one of the officers bought like 50,000 shares. I couldn't find any other news, so usually that means I'm going to short it. If it's popping on essentially no news, maybe insider buying, who knows. We'll take a quick shot at it. But Arun, there actually is a few things that are active here today. Even Softy, which, I don't know, man, you shorted it yesterday, and I'm like, I looked at the chart, I was like, I like the 306 break, but it still sets up for a short as well.
You would think, right? I liked the short when I took it too, and about 2 minutes later, I was getting slapped in the face by it. So it makes me hesitate on the short side below 303. That's where we went short yesterday. It makes me think that there's a lot more interest on the buy side just underneath here. So would I want to go short down there again immediately? Probably not, but I'd be open to the idea of shorting it if I can actually get some trading done in that point. It won't be just a breakdown trade that I'll take. If we can get down there and start trading a little bit, then I think, and it starts bringing more and more sell volume, then I think the option to go on the short side is there. Of course, a 306 break is the better play, I would say. It's a cleaner play, right? The market has gone straight, well, this stock has gone straight up, gone sideways for a couple days, and now if we consolidate and break out again, I think that's probably the easier play of the two. That is an option as well. AMC, I've gotten along on the pre-market. The chart on AMC looks pretty good for the day. The way it's been trading above this 39.40 mark towards 39.50 makes me think that maybe, you know what, risking 40 cents down towards 37 even would be a great trade. Risk reward wise, you're probably looking at 38 at least before we can actually get going. So why not take a shot at AMC with a 40-cent risk? That's one trade I've got. The other one I am looking at shorting is PDD. You just talked about this. I'm trying to take. This is a delicate trade just because you can actually take multiple, you can go different directions with this, right? You can take the 92 break upside for the extension off the top. You can actually go for what I'm doing right now. It's a 90 break short. And then if this goes bad, you still take the 92. So you have to be ready to take both sides of this trade if you want to play this 92 area, which is what I'm looking at. So that's something I'm doing right now. You can see the offers in there right now with that line. There you go. There's that fill. So one short, one long, and that's how we're going to start today.
Yeah, going to be an interesting one for these Chinese stocks. It's good to see Microsoft as well, just within shouting distance of all-time highs. We'll go over all of these and more coming up. Before we get into it, though, let's get over to the desk and say good morning to Ms. V.
Hey guys, happy trading to you all. It's going to be an exciting day. I wish you all the luck, and please don't forget to like this video. Let's get it started, Brandon.
Let's indeed get it started, guys. I want to talk about CrowdStrike here. This out after market yesterday. We learned that CRWD is going to be added to the NASDAQ 100 on, I guess that's what, Thursday morning. So at the open August 26th, replacing this Maxim, which is MXIM. So CrowdStrike getting a nice little pop this morning on that news, 4.8%. Again, that was out after market yesterday, you can see. But I mean, we're right here back to recent high territory here for CRWD, guys. Good look for this one today.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually in a pretty good spot to at least hold up. If it, I mean, this 250 level gives you some cover, even if there's any kind of selling on the news. I mean, you kind of anticipate we'll probably get a test of 270. Because the other side of this coin is Palo Alto just absolutely blew it out of the water. They were up like, last I checked, like 10 or 11%. So that certainly, I think, on a sympathy play would give you two sort of catalysts for CrowdStrike today. Like, no way that anything close to that 250 isn't going to be good. And then, as you mentioned there, that 270 top. Now, obviously, you know, this is a pretty heavy chop zone in CrowdStrike that it's getting back into, and it spends a decent amount of time up here. But that's a solid range. It doesn't do a lot of volume for the day trade, but that's a pretty solid actionable range, about $15 worth. So if you catch anything, like if this thing were to dip down, if we could actually catch, you know, like 52s and 53s, I'd be pretty interested in. And then, you know, I was mentioning Palo Alto, which, of course, it's on the New York. It's tech and it's 4 letters. So every single time, my muscle memory, like I've been doing this for a long time, and it hasn't been true that it's 3-letter symbols in New York for probably a decade, and I still have not adjusted to that. It's like whatever, tech, 4 symbols, I type in it. I just think it's NASDAQ. But I was talking about Palo Alto. This is a bit of a different story because they posted earnings and they're breaking, I mean, they're breaking out here, right? So, you know, you get this 410, 415 area top break, whereas CrowdStrike's moving into it. Now, obviously different catalysts, one reporting earnings and blowing it out of the water, and the other one getting an inclusion in an index, which will get you a bump, but maybe not enough to push through. So, you know, it would be nice to be able to see a Palo Alto hold above. You know, if it closes in the 410 to 415 range, that's a win for it. But this might be the stronger of the two stocks today. I'd definitely be looking to catch a little CrowdStrike if there's any kind of a dip, though. But keep in mind that this is the other catalyst here. Pan-Dub here, Palo Alto with a monster quarter.
Yeah, I was actually looking at Pan-W as well. It's really expensive, but the setup was that. Let me pull up the chart for Pan-W. Here we go. 405 is what I was looking at. We got quite the gap. The trading is fairly light for a $400 stock. You can't really expect too much in terms of liquidity, right? Let's just see what the level 2 looks like. There you go, 30-cent spread. Ignore these NYBs. You have 100 shares on this side. You have 1,000 shares on 415 even. That's not surprising. 50-cent spread. I I'm looking at 405 as a potential support. I think once we get underneath 410, you don't see it on this chart just because I've pulled out some pre-market data. On one of my other charts, though, you do see some action around 410 going down to 405 you could potentially work with. If you're going to catch a bounce, I think it's got to be a bounce off the sell into 410. That's all you can really do with PAN-W at this price. The other flip side, PDD, right? We kind of made this decision here. If we're going to go with a 90 short, then you got to be willing to flip at 92 if this goes bad. It is going crazy right now. Somebody came in trying to move this stock at 90 even with 20,000 shares. And obviously in the pre-market on a stock like this that has news, it is going insane with how many prints are going off on both directions actually at this point. So just be aware, there's a lot of activity going on in PDD. Even though BABA is in the same boat, it's not moving as much as PDD is.
All right, the earnings call for PDD, I was just checking here. Oh, it was 7:30. So it actually started 7:30 Eastern, you can see. So, I mean, we're an hour and change into that. So heads up if you are watching Pinduoduo off of that report. So there's going to be lots of ways, obviously, we can approach this Chinese group today. I want to talk about DD Global here because 2 days in a row, we're back to the upside here. They announced yesterday they're going to hold off or shelve plans to launch their service in the UK. We are back above a significant level here this morning, up 4.5% or more than that. $8, if you remember, was support over on the daily chart here. So good look once again here, guys, for DD.
What's interesting is it's like I feel like there's something for every style of trader with the Chinese stocks. If you want a cheaper name, like you're going to be able to look at your DD. You can probably even look all the way down at the end of the spectrum at some of the education names, although I'm not today. But the setups are all they're not all the same, but the chart has the same capitulation bottom, and then but some have some really obvious breakout setups. I mean, I thought Pinduoduo was going to be one at 91, but we'll see here because it wasn't as clean the second time through. And Alibaba, you look at that 170, you look at the 167 support. Some things are really clear. DD's not that clear for me here. What I'm definitely sure about is if it gets up to like this 850, and I kind of probably said this when it was at the bottom. If it gets to this 855 area, that's sort of like, it's not a line in the sand, but it's a pretty good pivot point here. I would say when I look at the 15. But what Brendan was mentioning, when you look at the daily, double bottom, found support. If it holds above $8, and I'm sort of looking on the daily chart, you look how good this 8 sort of looks here. If it can hold above, that could be a base of operations. I mean, your problem is you're pennies away from it. Of all of these names, it's certainly, I want to say, feels the weakest. It's only at 5%, actually less than that, and it feels maybe like it's not quite as strong as some of the other ones because Pinduoduo shrugged off that sell-off like gangbusters, which is like, what the heck? I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But DD for me, if it gets to that 855 and I had to fade one of them, I might take a shot at DD, and it could be a breakout through there. I feel so much more comfortable buying this one on a dip, even a deep one down to like this area where I know there's likely to be some support around 50s. Kind of how I'm feeling about NEO today, where I'd just rather buy the dip. Yesterday resisted so hard that 38 breakout that if it gives you any shot at that range that it made, 38 to 38.40, I feel like I'd be all over it. DD, I'd rather sit this one out unless it dips down like 40 or 50 cents. And then same thing, like I'll actually feel like there's a bit of a trade there if I get up into that, if it gets up into that 850 range, the middle. I just want to sit this one out. I feel like, whether it's JD.com, whether it's Pinduoduo, whether it's going to be Alibaba, NEO in this case, there's so many to choose from. I don't want to take something which is going to be imperfect, and DD for me is exactly that.
Yeah, for me, when it comes to the Chinese stocks, you have so many names you can pick with, like Neil said. DD is one option. You can see that it actually got above 8 even, 810-ish with some strength. This is going back to the 18th or so. So we've cleared some zones, and if you want to play DD, there's one. The other option is, for me, I'm looking at PDD and BABA. Clearly, I'm in trouble with this PDD trade because as soon as I got filled, there was this big buyer that was chasing up the shares. It was about 20,000 shares or so, aggressively stepping up. They got 20,000 printed at 91 in the pre-market, which is kind of insane, I think. So this does have some strong buying interest in the pre-market already. So we'll see how this goes at the open, but I think the short's in trouble. So we got to be prepared to flip this trade once we get to 92. But the other option is, if I'm going to play PDD, I might as well play BABA as well. I don't want to jump in with DD PDD and BABA. So I'm going to pick 2 out of 3, and I'm going to go ahead with PDD and BABA as the 2 stocks that I want to play in this sector at least.
All right, I want to talk about some crypto news here just coming out, guys. MicroStrategies, looks like they are just releasing some numbers from last month, or it's Q3 actually. So they purchased 3,907 Bitcoins at an average price of $45,294. So that's 177 million-ish in cash. Now, overall, this group pretty uneventful so far this morning. Bitcoin itself, as we said, slightly lower on the day, but still holding up, in relation to where we were over the past couple of weeks. So worth having a look at some of these crypto stocks once again this morning. We saw a decent move coming out of Sunday into yesterday. Wasn't much follow through though.
Yeah, not a ton, but I mean, we talked about this yesterday where I felt like that 50,000 is a psychological number and 51 might be a little bit more tricky to get through. But as long as if consolidation happens between like 47 and 51 on spot, then I think you're probably going to be looking pretty okay for that breakout that everyone's waiting for. Otherwise, if it lingers too long and 47 breaks, you might get a retracement down to like 42 or 44 area on Bitcoin. And if that happens, I'm looking at Mara here. I know you talked about microvision. I feel like, and I could be wrong about this, I feel like most of the audience here, if they're trading the equity side, they're looking at things like Mara, Riot, SOS. I like Silvergate because I own it, but that's probably not the play to make here, guys. And I think some of you will talk about Coinbase as well, but I think there's actually levels on Coinbase. Honestly, if we break down, and I think if we ever get a test of 47, what I'd look to see specifically on Mara, and I've talked about this before, is like if you can find an area, and let's just say there is that bit of a flush, you'd be looking between 35, probably around like 35 and 34 to see if that could actually hold up. Likely it might be a little bit deeper than that because sometimes you get outsized moves in these particular names. But just notice how violent this is. Like when you had that lack of follow through and breaking 50,000, and everyone came in their gangbusters, like, okay, let's go crypto to the moon, and they have a chance to trade the equities in, and they're buying late because there's no trading over the weekend. You get this false breakout, and then you get the absolute flush in Mara, and that's why I always say, like, it's a lot easier to play these simultaneously off key levels. Like, you don't want to be hammering a breakout long when you're not breaking out a key level as well in Bitcoin in particular. So be very, very careful when you're trading Mara for those particular reasons. That's why if it dips down, I actually want to see spot hold. And if you're not following, first of all, if you don't have a good way to track the actual current spot price of Bitcoin, then I'm not even sure how you're trading something like a Mara intraday. Like, you can invest in it if you want and hold it for swings, and maybe that's a good way to go. But look, I wouldn't touch any of these levels, which I think 35 would look interesting to me on a dip, unless I have a corresponding level of support that's going to work for me on BTC. And you can see how that works out for you when a breakout like this, which might set up traditionally for an equity gap up, a little bit of a holder hot consolidation here in the pre-market, and then breaking out at the open. Well, it didn't really give you much except for a 50, 60 cent scalp that I don't think people were looking for. And that's because 50,000 held pretty well there to the upside, and you can't be punching into something like that, right? Like, that would be punching into a breakout on Microsoft when the ES and the NASDAQ are both simultaneously reversing off of a high. Right? Like, it's probably not going to work out for you in that particular situation. You're then hoping that drags it up, and that's never happening here because it's even a bigger relationship where this is simply going to follow spot price.
Yeah, for me, I try to stay away from these derivative plays off of Bitcoin as much as possible. When I mean derivative, I mean like these miners and whatnot in the equity game. If I'm going to play Bitcoin, I might as well play Bitcoin or the actual tokens themselves, or you can even, I haven't actually looked into this. We actually have access to Bitcoin futures, I think.
We haven't.
Something like that. We have something on the future.
Not that liquid, though.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? I haven't looked into the liquidity aspect of that, but we do have other things that you can play directly related to the actual coin itself versus these miners. So when it comes to a stock, I would probably favor coin just because of my experience with Mara and Riot personally. So if I were to play coin, let's just take a quick look at the chart on coin. Well, 255 seems to be some support with 253 and change. If you get above 261, you're probably going to run into resistance at 262 and 263. So I'm not sure I would want to step into these anyway, even if they were something I would look at. The chart doesn't look the greatest in terms of support resistance. It looks a little murky for me, so I'd probably stay away from this on its own.
happening, guys, on if you're looking at Mara, Riot actually reported better than expected results. So both Mara and Riot kind of trade similarly. If we're looking for, or if we get a little bit of weakness coming into the market, Altus USA, one to kind of keep in your back pocket for today. Not really doing a heck of a lot in the pre-market, but headline on Altus USA. There we go. Thanks, guys. JP Morgan shopping a block trade. It's said to be 13.75 million shares, 28.50 to 29.11. So as I said, not terribly active here in the pre-market. It is down already 2.5%. But we've seen this more commonly, I guess, over the past couple of months, going back into early summer. If you remember, there was Viacom went crazy, Viac and some of the media stocks because of some block trades that were going off. Different reasons, obviously, but if this does start to go to the downside, ATUS already, you know, this is an internet provider, so I mean, already pretty negative here on the daily chart.
Yeah, and I think usually you want to see blood in the water first. Instead of like, because if you put it, like, it's not to say that this thing couldn't come back down, and it even has some good room until you get that bottom that it's put in a couple of days ago. Every chart, like, I swear to God, like every chart I pull in, it's exactly the same thing. You get like a wipeout bottom and everything is bouncing 10% if I call up a tech stock. But anyways, ATUS here, like I'd need to see like some printing down here, and ideally maybe at the open, like breaking like a 28. Now, otherwise, you don't want to be that person that makes a print paying spread down, because I can tell you, like, just if you wanted 1,000 shares of stock right now, you'd be paying down to like 28.20. So it's sitting up here, you'd pay down to this price, and that's going to be anybody that takes a short like this. So you want to see volume come into something like that, maybe even to the sell side, and then it's not to say that you chase it, but catch the momentum, because usually it's going to be momentum that drives it. Sometimes block trades actually matter. You know, other times, shopping a block is not going to be the end of the world here, especially a stock that had a bit of a recovery like this. It might actually find some leeway in that 27.50 range, but it's so tiny pre-market wise that I would not want to touch it, guys. So I'm going to stay away from it. I do see you there. In a comment about Sava there, the exile. So I did notice Sava. Look at your Sava chart there, Sava Sciences, and watch that 126. I guess like 126 half area that it's about to get into, because that should be a pretty big one. They got some positive news, and we will get to Kara. Kara is on our watch list as well. Lot to cover still. We haven't even gone to half the Chinese names, which are all moving, and then some of the tech names as well.
Yeah, there's a lot moving. Well, you would think, right? Because the markets are relatively flat, 0.6%, 0.06% on the S&P 500 and 0.09 on the NASDAQ. So it's relatively quiet on the index side of things, but there's a lot of stocks moving, and the Chinese sector is one of them. Along that, my alert list seems to be quite large today, unusually large than normal for to start off the day. But I just want to bring up ATUS since we talked about this. Okay, 2 days where we've pretty much just trended in one direction, right? We went from 27.60 to 28.60, and then the next day we went from 28.40 to 29.20. Straight up, two different days, and now we're taking a break. What does that mean? Well, the door ends up being wide open to the downside if we do get a sell. I would imagine 28 even being the round number would be the break point. Because when a market does this, it doesn't really develop any sort of buying zones or any sort of established levels to work with. So the downside is wide open. I kind of talk about this in the future sometimes, but a lot of the time when you do this, you do leave the downside wide open. So just keeping an eye out for the downside on ATUS. And we got Brendan with upgrades and downgrades.
Yeah, a few analyst moves to pass along once again this morning, guys. Nothing terribly exciting on here. There's Palo Alto. We mentioned PanW after earnings. JP Morgan, or JPM Securities, I should say. Liking that one. Kara, FDA approval, aftermarket came through, so that one's up decently this morning. We'll touch on that. Ulta Beauty on here. Again, nothing terribly exciting on the downside, guys.
Yeah, I mean, Kara, obviously, we talked about this. It was probably not going to open up until aftermarket, and then that's exactly what does happen. Now, I will never want to start, like, it doesn't even matter the drug, right? Like, no one's coming into market with a drug unless they think it's going to have a benefit. So I will absolutely never want any drug to fail. That's just an absolute guarantee. But I can tell you, there's like that small part of me that was saying, I remember Sesson, and if these guys don't get approval, that's going to be, it would just have been a crazy trade, right? I think that's usually what will end up happening. There's a lot of people that are very, very bullish on Kara. Probably goes without saying here. And there is a lot of room for this stock. Like, when you gap up into a range like this, and I look back and I sort of and I'm looking right here because we got to this 18 and then sort of held up, right? And I looked at this 18 and that's like 18 to 20. And above 20, you got some spike levels, a couple of dollars. That's a wide range through the top here. So it would be pretty amazing for this thing, to be able to extend through that $20 level, this company to extend through that $20 level. I'd be a little bit shocked if it actually was able to hold above like a 20. But let's see what happens, because anytime I look at the post-market reaction, and then you're essentially holding the same level of support in the aftermarket that you are, after when we gonna come in here sitting down into a sell, right? Like it tries to get going at 7 a.m. And then rolls over. A lot of times it's like, okay, well, is it going to punch through that 17? No, it wicked down and held. It's held like 3 times here at that 17 level. Now, I haven't really noticed anything that stood out at 17, but that maybe this stock does want to make a push into that 20. I feel like it would have some trouble from 20 to 22. That goes without saying. But Kara, for now, I mean, that 17 level stands out. I don't like. A lot of times I'll look for that like 930 rollover on news. I don't like that for this stock because you have to be trading it off of that 18, this area here, and I just don't want any part of that. I think I'd rather, if it would have to be something, it would have to be up into that 20 range, if not 20 to 22, which would probably require like a halt to the upside or a crazy parabolic move in. If I was going to short it, I guess you'd rather see it hold below 17, and I just don't even see that happening today. I mean, I could be wrong, obviously, but I'm not really seeing it. So for me, Kara, I might actually be sitting this one out. I could maybe take a quick little break at 18, but there's a lot of other stocks I like for breakouts better. I'd rather just sit and wait for this to either test that 17 or give me that look at 20 that I think could be there.
Yeah, for me, Kara, there's something going on with Kara above 18 even, and makes me hesitate. So one of the first things I look at is when a stock comes out of a halt and it puts in an extreme price. In this case, it put in 19. Keep that price as a reference price, because that's the furthest point of extreme volume you were able to get off of a halt or the reopen after the halt. What did it do when it went up there the second time in the pre-market or in the aftermarket? What time is this? Around 4 a.m. this morning. It hesitated again, which tells me that there is some buyer, or sorry, some seller sitting between 1850 to 19 even, which makes me think that this resistance level is actually quite large above there. So I'm actually looking to potentially short this above 18 even. As long as we get a setup, I'd like to go short 18 even and change with the 19 even stop. If we get a break below 17, that's another potential short there. So you can either get it above 18 with a setup, or you can get 17 on a breakdown, and then see if we can ride that down all the way and close that gap down towards 15 and change. I do want to mention one thing with PDD. This trade is definitely in trouble. I'm trying to get bail on this trade as much as I can without losing too much here. There is undercover buying going on in PDD, which makes me concerned for the open. So this might be quite an aggressive open on PDD once we get to 930.
All right, guys, we'll get into what else is moving around here in the pre-market, because there are quite a few to talk about this morning. That is the link for the morning note. If you still need it, all you need is an email address. We send it out every single morning, absolutely free to you before we come on at 8:30. As I mentioned, there's going to be multiple different angles we can take when it comes to some of these Chinese stocks. PDD reported, JD.com reported yesterday better than expected results. That kind of kicked off some of this buying and strength in this group. There's also the EV makers. There's news on XPeng today, starting to export some of their models into Europe. There's also some of the education stocks, EDU, FUTU, also showing strength here in the pre-market. No real significant catalyst outside of they've been beaten down so much, guys. I think it's time for a bit of a bounce.
Right, like the chatter is that this is the last sort of negative piece of news. So like they've got their 3 legs out there on the last one coming out with data protection from the Chinese regulators there, and I think that's why you're getting capitulation bounce. Now, you mentioned XPeng there, and I know I'm going to talk about NIO here. XPeng launching, they're going to be launching a sedan in Norway. NIO is going to be following suit as well, so they're both pushing to finally get some exports out there, and I think that's going to be a good look for them. Obviously, NIO was a trade that we liked in yesterday's action, obviously through 38 on the break. You saw in the afternoon show, it just couldn't really follow through. Like, it was an okay trade. Don't get me wrong, like I'm not too upset with it. It was like a triple bottom. We were actually able to finally get that breakout. It just couldn't extend past that 38.40. So I kind of said I prefer NEO on a dip buy today. I'm looking right into that same price. We closed at 38.17, but I'd be a buyer probably starting. I got a bid actually here in the 40s. I don't know if I might check that one up here in the 50 range, but I want to be dip buying on NEO today. I just feel like that's usually the better way to go. I didn't play that route in yesterday's action because I wanted to play the break, and that ended up being an obvious mistake because the best trade would have been starting to take it off of this 37 level from Friday's action. So I want to see if I can rectify that. If it does make a turn a little higher up, like maybe go all the way back to the 18th, and then you check some of those like mid 38 prices, that could be a nice little spot to start digging in on NIO. That's the way I prefer to be getting into NEO, because you pull back here and sort of say to yourself, okay, well, above this level, this 39.40 that we have, you do have this 39.65, 70 kind of top that you got into in last week, which was resistance, and then 40 above there. So it was just a little bit more room to have a solid price and an entry on a long side in NEO if you catch it on the dip, as opposed to the breakout, which will be, I think it's almost like a set of scalp trades until you get to that 40 area, and then you're really looking for 40 to follow through. Obviously, we're going to talk about some Pinduo Duo. I'll get your thoughts on NEO here, Arun. But Pinduo Duo, it's set up for a long for me, and then I was like, my goodness, that flush that it just put in made me think about the shorts. I don't think I could short that one unless it's below 88. It's looking pretty interesting, but let's get your thoughts on NEO, Arun.
NEO, yeah, 39.75 is what I'm looking at. If we can get above there, this is going back to the 16th. So we're looking at what, 8 days now. We've hesitated around this 39.50 and change quite a few times. There's enough action here that we were able to bring it down from 39.50 all the way to 36 even. Seems to be some support around 37.50 or so. So now we are at the top end of that range once again. So you can either take two shots. You can either go for the short in front of this area, or you can take the breakout. I'm not confident going for the short up here, given how strong it's been in the last few sessions. So why not look for the breakout? If it ends up being a breakout, just be aware this might actually take a few days to work itself out, because it is a multi-day breakout through the top end. So if we get that break, today might be a quiet day as we breach 40, and then we might actually accelerate in the next couple days. These kind of setups kind of take some time to work themselves out, so just be patient with them if you are going in that direction.
BPTH, guys, trying to get to session highs here. Just a heads up on BPTH watch. 850 seems to be a bit of a level on the daily chart. Arun, why don't we get a check on the overall market while we have a moment? As you mentioned, pretty flat, but still in positive territory.
Yeah, well, yesterday was straight up. If you were able to catch it in the morning, you were able to sit on a nice winner, but there was no real entry after. I want to say, for me, we didn't trade it. I didn't make any trades on the futures yesterday. And essentially from the open, around 9:30 or so, straight up towards 85, and then we just went sideways. And we haven't done a whole lot since then. We're kind of still working the bands here. I've got 44.70 marked off. So I can do two things here. I can either look for a long, which is what I'm going to do. At the moment, it does look slightly sell-side bias. There seems to be some selling above here, above the 85 mark. So if we can actually set it up at some point during the day, I will go ahead and take the long with the 44.70 stop. Short side, I'm not comfortable with the shorts just yet. The reason I say this is because we breached 90, which puts us as close to 4,500 as possible, with people using that as a stop point. So anytime we are at a round number, I always hesitate to get short, because the run on stops at a round number is going to be fairly aggressive. So do I want to be short as the stops are getting taken out? If I'm on the long side, that'd be great. But if I'm on the short side, that might not work in my favor. That might slip my exit by a couple handles. So for me, I prefer the long side and try to ride this into 4,500 as we take some stops. That would be the preferable trade. Again, we do have to set up. Right now, I don't see enough to work with. At some point, if I do take a trade, I will let you guys know, but we are focusing on other stocks at the moment. And the more I talk about this and the more I look up, PDD, man, getting more and more aggressive to the buy side here. Hopefully that kind of lets go a little bit so I can get this out, take a small hit on this and walk away before we take out 92. But yeah, it is looking like there's some interesting activity in PDD, especially given how when we sat down, When Neil sat down, he was like, oh, that was a great potential short at 88 or somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And then about 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, he's like, oh, well, look at it now. It's at 90. So it's been aggressive in the pre-market, and the volume is now stepping up as well. So just be aware that there's a lot happening on PDD. It's surprising that Baba's not doing a whole lot, though, right now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting once we get this market open on these Chinese stocks, but definitely the most strength coming from those so far today. Let's go to Best Buy. A lot of people buying electronics still at this point, even throughout the pandemic or latter part of the pandemic. They did say same-store sales up more than expected, so people are getting back into the actual brick and mortar stores as well. 20% jump in comparable sales, beating estimate of 17.2% jump, but overall, guys, I mean, EPS beat by $1.09 per share, and they also topped revenue for BBY.
Yeah, like their guidance was pretty good too. Like some of the drops they had for the future quarter were a little bit low, well, not a little bit, a heck of a lot lower, like 1 to 3 range compared to 9. Some of the analysts were saying. And look, I mean, forget about the the 1 minute chart there, because I was just quickly looking at a level at 116. But it ran into some resistance at that 120 here in the pre-market. That's going to be, I guess, obvious because it doesn't do a ton of volume. So chewing through a level like that was probably going to be not in the cards. But I mean, if we're actually going to sniff 115 here, I'll be liking this 115 area. Sometimes you get that, like, what is the previous resistance? And it tried to accept through that price last week. Oh, sorry, yeah, if you go into last Monday, and then we had some resistance at that 115 on a good print. Buying a 115, I'm all over. I'm going to have a bid in here. I'll probably check that one in. Actually, you know what? It's after 9 o'clock, so I can probably put that one in now. I'm going to be bidding in front of 115 in that 25 to 115 range, so 115.50 range on Best Buy, and then see if we can't buy the dip here. Maybe we don't get through that 120, but even if we're able to catch something here, I think we can get like $1.50, maybe a $2 move. It's not necessarily the one that you want to be, like crossing spread with and taking breakouts, just looking at it. I mean, it's like a 30-cent spread as I watch the level 2 right now. But as we get closer to the open, feel more comfortable, and then buying in front of previous resistance on a good print always tends to make sense to me, especially if I like the space. So as far as I always said Bed Bath & Beyond. As far as Best Buy goes, I'll throw in a 115, 25 to 50 bid, somewhere in that range to get long, hopefully off of the open. If I don't get filled right away, it doesn't mean that trade would be done. I'd also check back in on that, around like that 935, 940, just to see if I want to adjust that bid or make any alterations. But I only want to be buying a dip. And apologies, we talked about the Chinese names. I didn't really go over Alibaba too well there. This is going to stand out, obviously. You're going to see 170 up here. This is pre-market highs, 169.88. It's kind of the same thing. I have a break buy on Alibaba at 170. I kind of replaced. I was looking at DD, and then DD went all haywire on me there, and maybe it can be tricky post earnings. Candidly, we've talked about this with Shakib and whatnot. I did step into BABA thinking this was going to be a capitulation bottom for a shot play in the long term as well, but we're strictly talking day trades here. So when I say a 170 break, I mean, this 167 level stands out and looks pretty amazing to possibly be a floor here, a temporary floor here. If Alibaba dips into 167 and holds that price, and I'm talking about, I'd be willing to get out of a 170 long. If it breaks 170, maybe it immediately slams back down like a failed break that I would usually short at a small cap, I would be willing to get out of that trade. Just check it out at like 169 and then hunt back and go 2-3x if it bounces off 167. Because if it tries to do a capitulation bottom off of news like this, only at 5% when you've seen other strength bits bigger than this in the market, the simple way that we just had Pinduoduo tank on earnings and come all the way right back up to the top. I mean, if Alibaba is going to tank through and then hold that previous resistance at 167, which is a multi-day level, then I definitely want to be buying in front. What I don't want to be doing is taking a 170 breakout and then holding it all the way down to 167 and then averaging into more shares at that price. Like, to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I might have 2 trades here. One which I might have a relatively tight stop on the 170 break, but I definitely want to take a shot. If this stock falls and turns at 167, Alibaba I got to have.
Yeah, well, I've got Alibaba marked off as well. 170 or 168, whichever direction we break, that's the direction I'm going to be going in, and the other side will be the stop. So 170 long with the 168 stop, or a 168 short with the 170 stop. Whichever direction, we'll go with it. Back to Best Buy. Oh, Best Buy. I've spent a lot of money and helped your earnings probably. Best Buy is one of those stocks that's right here, like Neil said, around 115 going down to 114 would probably be a decent support zone with 112 as your stop. We're above this marker back from the 18th, the 20th, and yesterday, above 114.50. So I would imagine there's some decent support down there if we get back down there. One thing that does concern me, though, with Best Buy is the amount of action we're getting around 119. Like I said with the stock that was hauled, Akara, when it opens or when an earnings comes out and it kind of puts in an extreme price, and then we kind of really hesitate around that extreme price, it makes me think twice about how much action is there. So maybe, you know what, I would be a little careful for anyone who's looking for a potential 118, 119 area to go long. Just maybe a little patience there, because this seller could be a lot bigger than you could see on the chart. So just be a little aware of that this is happening up here with some selling going on in that price point. Other than that, well, Baba is at 169.50. Oh, the other one that I was actually looking at was BPTH. We had this, we were talking about this earlier. It finally broke 8 even. Finally broke 8 even and is actually holding strong on BPTH. So why not? Let's get some longs on BPTH on a dip back down towards 8. And I'm going to use 760 as a stop.
All right, we'll continue along here, guys. Let's talk Microsoft. We mentioned yesterday back to all-time highs. After announcing the end of last week, they were going to increase Office 365 pricing on the subscription side of things. So nice look once again this morning. Again, not terribly active for MSFT, but I mean, we're right here again near all-time highs.
Look, I mean, the 15 minutes, all you need to look at. Look, the daily chart shows you, look, right at the highs, that's fine, and it's been an absolute blowout. But you look at that 30, it's 305, like 84, I think, technically is going to be the top, and then yesterday stalled out 305 half, I think, in the pre-market there before trying to roll over. And this looked, I mean, we're kind of talking about this. This looked all the world like, you know, 303 breakdown here would make some sense, holding a lower high and then trying to flush out. And it did get you a move down into 302, but comes all the way back, manages to close pretty much right at that 305 mark, and then we're again testing 306. So I'm going to be on a 306 break on Microsoft. It's just, you know, betting against it for a breakout has not necessarily been the way to go. But if we don't get a break of 306 and we come down, it's hard not to look at a 303 break, the exact same setup that was there yesterday that didn't work. And you just said it in a room with Alibaba, that you'll take it breaking in either direction. Like if it breaks 170, you go long. If it breaks 168, you go short. That's kind of the way I'm feeling about Microsoft this morning, where I'm definitely on that 306. And I'm sort of been talking myself into, well, the setup is there. Like it didn't go the first time. And if I believe it didn't go the first time, it's going to break upside here. The market doesn't, I mean, it looks strong. I don't know if it feels as strong as it did yesterday overall. So 303 goes. I mean, the risk to reward seems pretty amazing, because do I think we would test lower than that 302? I'd almost think so. I think if we have a shot to get down at least to that 300 range, which immediately looks pretty good to you there, and if it extends through 300, I know there's going to be buyers on Microsoft. You know that's going to be true, right? But if it doesn't hold 300, they're likely going to be down, just saying, okay, let's wait around patiently for 95 to 97 range. So yeah, I got my 306 locked and loaded to go here. I would probably not just have a stop order on Microsoft down through 303. I'd almost want to see it trade down there before getting into short position. But I'm willing to go both directions on Microsoft today. I'm going to leave in the stop order for the 306 break, because that's the one I don't want to miss for sure. But if we trade below 303 and can hold an offer there for any amount of time, I kind of feel like it's going to be a bit of a chance for a rollover. I mean, the market as well, like I said, looking strong, but maybe not feeling quite as strong. So I want to have some short ideas in one of the big names here, and that'll be Microsoft.
Yeah, Microsoft, like I mentioned off the top here, 306 long, that's the only trade for me. I'm not a fan of the downside action here in the 303 range, so we'll put that aside. I did see in the chat, I did not mention SKLZ. I am long on that at 1090 and change in front of this 11. The reason being is that we kind of got past this 1080 marker that we were kind of really hesitating on. So at that point, I was like, okay, well, do I have enough upside at least 20 cents? Because I was going to put 20 cents in risk, so 1070 and change was going to be my risk. see if we can't see above 11. So 11, 11.10, 11.20, that's kind of my first target. It's 20 cents for 20 cents. There's not a whole lot. It's not really exciting, guys. This one, that's why I kind of just didn't bother talking about this, but it is there. That's a trade I'm looking at. If you want to go in that direction, if you want to go for those smaller winners, then by all means, that's the read there. It's just above some support that I'm going to work with. But closer and closer we get to 170 on BABA. So 170 break seems to be the direction we're going to be going in towards the open on BABA. So if we do get that long, it's going to be a $2 and change risk down towards 168.
Yeah, I saw yesterday on that skills there was a few notes floating around about a possible M&A target, SKLZ. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Another one this morning that's not terribly active here in the pre-market, but another positive note for DraftKings that came out this morning, signing a multi-year agreement with SimpleBet to expand their sportsbook in-game offerings. So up 1.5% here. This is more of, big levels right above us here for DraftKings, guys. 54 kind of screaming at you on the daily chart.
It's a trap. That's what DraftKings is for me every single time. I get excited about this making a breakout. So I find if you go bottom hunting off support of DraftKings without catalysts, it feels like that's the way that works out. And then on the day that we actually feel like there might be a little something and it's about to break out, that's the day it pulls in the big retracement. So this will seem counterintuitive here, but the best I have when I was looking at DraftKings was, okay, there's 55 resistance up here. So like maybe I actually want to be shorting any kind of a crazy pop, and then just say, heck, if I was normally hunting for an aggressive dip buy, I'd be all over the 53.50 range. So the it's a trap in me, or the Admiral Akbar says, just wait back lower and say, okay, well, maybe I'll actually look at the 53 level and give it even more room. Like wherever I would want to buy, just buy it deeper, because that always seems to be the case with DraftKings. Like if I try to buy the dip when I think it's going to be a nice little push in there, it always rejects on me. But I know that level Brennan talked about at 55 should be actionable. And a lot of people will have their eyeballs on that. So that could be good for a rollover style trade. I do want to come over to, I know we're talking DraftKings here, and apologies, but that BPTH still making some moves up. It's again testing that high. Now, Arun, I know you mentioned you liked $8 for a dip. I'm kind of looking back at this 775 range off of the open, just to see if it can pull back here. I still like that 850. I think that's going to be your first shot. Like if it fails at 850, right at 930, I think that's when you get one of those pullbacks, probably into that 775 to 8 range. I like that a little bit better. And then it even has this was barcoding, man. It had all kinds of support in that 735 to 750 range. So even if it were to break through, I'd expect to see some consolidation lower there. But it's very, very close to 850. I'm not long through the top because I want to see if it's going to give me that quick short off of 850, snap back into that 775 range, where I'd be willing to catch rubber band action for a bit of a long trade. I think you have 2 areas of cover. So even if things get crazy, if you bought a dip at 775, 780, at least you know you've got some buyers down here at that 735 to 750 range, just in case things get a little bit hairy on that pullback. So BPTH, I don't see anything doing crazier volume going into the open. Got to make sure we're trading this one.
Yeah, another stock that I actually want to mention here is Pepsi, PEP. So here I am trying to play in front. What's that?
Better be long.
Short side, sorry.
Damn it.
It actually might be at some support. But again, the reason I go for the 158 short is because the risk on this trade is only going to be 50 cents or so. And I think I can get 50 cents on the move back down towards 157.50. So it all depends. It's a 1-for-1 trade, 50 cents for 50 cents. And of course, if we get the 157 break, I think the window wire opens to the downside quite a bit. So for now, I am going to leave an offer here. At the moment, this might change as we get closer and closer to the open, depending on how the pre-market looks. If I get a feel for that, it's going to be an aggressive open to one direction, I might just pull some orders. But for now, we are looking at the short on PEP with a 50-cent stop at 58.50.
All right, next one, guys. We'll talk Boeing here a little bit. We mentioned it yesterday, coming off of a few down days in a row. Had a nice green day yesterday, back to the upside on that news regarding billionaire Richard Branson's Virgin Orbit going public via SPAC merger. That SPAC is backed by a significant investment from Boeing. So we're trying to take back some levels here on the daily chart, around 220 for Boeing, up 0.5% again.
It's an interesting level. I don't think that we're going to, look, I mean, okay, fine, like that's great. The SPAC deal, we can talk about that. We mentioned it a bit yesterday, and I didn't love it for like a potential catalyst on a follow through, just because, you know, Boeing's got its own things that it needs to clear out here. The problem with this 220 level, and it's not a horrible level. I'd much prefer, like you said, you'd probably prefer this down at like 218 for a bit of a buy. And you kind of look at this fail break here, and then, you know, actually coming back in the afternoon through some of those prices makes me really like that probably 17 to 18 area. But there's just chop right to 225 here. And it's probably one of those things where it might have to grind into that level. So I'd much prefer Boeing, maybe just getting a little bit of relief, you know, down a couple of dollars here as opposed to, oh yeah, but if you like 220 to 225, you can buy it here at 220.50 right now as I look at the offer. But where's your stop going to be? Like if I'm stopping at 17 or 18 to buy it now, and I think 250, 225 is going to be resistance, that doesn't really set up for a trade. Buying the dip sets up for a trade. Consolidating and breaking out 225 later on in the week sets up for a trade. Buying it here at 220, I mean, I don't love it. Long term, I mean, fine, I still like Boeing, and maybe this isn't a bad place to dabble into it, but for the day trade, got to be a pass for me on Boeing unless something crazy happens off the open to the downside where maybe you're bargain hunting at the basement.
Yeah.
Watch out, Bob.
Yeah, Boba's still working 20s, 70s, right?
Yeah, it's close.
Yeah. Okay, Boeing. Man, look at this run on Boeing. Ever since we cracked 216, it's just been straight up. Here we are at 220. Here's what we're dealing with now. If we can hold this 220 even, I think 221 break to the upside allows you to actually say that this level has been held. And then if 221 breaks, I think you can play 219 as a stop. So $2 risk, you can probably get to 223 and change, 223, 223.50. If you decide to play in this direction, I prefer not to play Boeing just because I don't like the movement. You know how as traders, sometimes you prefer stock to move a certain way. You try to get an understanding of how the stock moves, and you're more comfortable with the movement and the volume coming in, and you can read it better. I can't really get a good read on BABA. I've never been able to. So I just try to stay away from this. And that's kind of the same thing that's happening with PDD, is that I'm walking away from PDD. I took my hit, and I don't want to, this is going to be taken off my list now because I just don't get, I can't figure out what's going on with PDD. I know obviously there's movement, but I can't get an understanding of the volume that's coming in, how it's being played. So I'd rather just walk away, take my hit and walk away and look for something else. We have other options, BABA being one of them, which is fairly close to an entry. So PDD is in the same boat that Boeing is. So I'm going to kind of stay away from Boeing for the moment.
It's up on Kara as well, guys. We're right back to that 17 area, 1710, which was the bottom end of the pre-market level, and that post-market after the announcement level from yesterday on CARA. Let's talk Peloton real quick here. About 10 minutes or so to go here before we get the market open. Peloton popping up in the pre-market. Again, not a lot of volume, but noteworthy anyways, 2.25%. They said they're going to relaunch the revamped Tread product, or the new Tread product, in the US, the UK, and Canada starting next week. And if you remember, going back to the beginning of the summer, they had to pull it off the shelf because of some safety concerns and some unfortunate accidents. So this is the second coming, I guess, of the second version of the Tread.
Okay, I mean, like, we'll see what happens. It's not doing a ton of volume here in the pre-market. That's the first thing that's going to jump out. I mean, people are interested because Kara, that 17, I am eyeballing that level. I would have loved to see it bounce there literally at 9:30 as opposed to, you know, sort of trending down into 9:30. It'll be hands off for me because I don't want a sell order to come in on Kara selling the news and then I'm buying right in front of it. I'd rather buy after it exhausts itself. But Peloton here, I don't love the chart for anything but probably down around 107 to 108. When you look at it, that looks like there should be support down there, but there's no breakouts that are obvious. I mean, like, what, you're looking at 110? I mean, does this look clean to at that 110 level? So I need to see volume come into Peloton to get too excited. Alibaba at that 170 mark. And apologies for not getting into BXRX. I guess I mentioned it at the beginning of the show. Like right away, I think we said, okay, I'm in this penny stock, going back to the old roots, and couldn't find any real news here other than, like, I think it was like, I forget which officer, maybe CFO, COO, buying some shares of the company here, and then it was gapping to the upside. There were no obvious levels. I mean, $1 always stands out to me here, but it was just retail comes in, it sells at 276, short the first consolidation, which was right here at 72. So I got a 70 half, Now, there's been buyers at 66, so I've been covering in front of it. There was a bit of an iceberg order here at 69 that I was able to notice. I said, okay, I'll trim some shares off, as it's about to break, thinking it was about to retest 72 and I would get more short. It never really went. It turned at 70, so I didn't add to the position. I kind of wanted to only add at a better price. If it's going to pop, it's still on the radar for a 930. Like if it pops into like 72 to 75, where I might get some more shares in that range, and then work it all the way down. Like 52 is where the stock closed at, so to see it print at 60 or even 55 wouldn't be surprising to me. The volume has been tapering off all pre-market there, and most of it came on the sell side, and then the consolidation below 70 here. So that's why I like this particular price. Maybe I'm in this one all day long, but I'm only going to add to it after 930 or at 930 if it pops and holds that 75 level. So BXRX, I am in the short side of that. NEO testing the top, so it looks like the dip buy might not happen. BABA pennies away from that 170 break, but not quite there.
Yeah, which is a good thing, I think. I think I'd rather get a break after the open with some volume than a pre-market, which could easily be a trap. And we'll just, in about 3 minutes, we're going to have the NASDAQ imbalance. I'll show you guys the imbalance when it comes up. But back to Piton. Here we are at 109. We kind of got above this action zone from the 20th. We've cleared this 108 from yesterday. So why not take a shot at the long? You can, but just be aware that it's taking off right now. It's already at 110 apparently. Well, is it actually, or is it just a single print? Let's take a look at that. No, that's just a spread. Somebody took some shares at the spread, so that's not really up there. But 109, that kind of gives you a chance, but then you've got to be aware that at 110, 111, 110 half, 111, there's a lot to the left that makes me think that the upside is fairly limited. Of course, we can blow it all wide open, but I'm not a fan of this chart. I think there's better chances elsewhere instead of putting up risk on a trade like this. So for now, we'll just go to Brendan at the big board.
Yeah, one more to talk about here, guys. There's a couple little ones moving around. Kara, BPTH. Other than that, kind of quiet in small cap world today. Remember this one from yesterday, VVOS, big giant green bar yesterday. Worth noting, it did not come back a long way. Yes, it retraced, but not a long way. A couple things to look at. 650, and then 7 above that are the levels that I've marked off for today. 6 was a level late in the day yesterday. I'm kind of discounting that late session squeeze that we got in the afternoon, but watch the top of that around 7. But a move back into 6 would get me interested in VVOS, guys.
And just had a bit of a break here. Well, not a break, but a bit of a move here in AMD as it just popped up off of it was consolidating at 109.25 or so. Just popped into this 110 range. And there was a question, I think I answered in the chat there, about the 110 break. Look, I liked 106.20 because it was a multi-day breakout yesterday. It then gave you a dip buy as well. And then just right into this, what would have been the previous resistance at 108.60. Now you still have this 111.50 looming, and it does set up in a very, very similar fashion. It's not a multi-day breakout, but it's an even breakout at that 110. Now, would I prefer dipping into that? And again, maybe this is one I would have already had if I wasn't also focused on the Chinese stock names there, down into that 108.60. But if we retest this level down here, previous resistance into support, that could be your other runway to get to that 111.50. I think just understanding that it might be one of those like $1 to $1.50 style trades on a 110 break is going to be part of what you want to be doing here. And then we mentioned with only 2.5 minutes to go here, NEO pressing towards the high. So, whoops, come on, load up. Give me NEO. There we go. So my first look was going to be buying the dip, and I was already sort of sitting, knowing I wanted yesterday's close, or at least in front of it. I'm going to check that one up a little bit here and get in front of that 50 with 2 minutes to go here. I still think there is a decent chance that you could see a bit of a rollover at 930 in some of these Chinese names, Chinese stocks. So NEO, I like it on a dip buy. It's usually been the better way to play this one if you like it to the upside. Let's go for that. And then BPTH does not take out the top. So at least for now, we're not going to be too concerned with that 850. Now, I still have that as a level for me, but it could give you that immediate dip right into that 775 range. That should be worth watching in the 90 seconds that we have here. I think that's the first level that you can buy on a pullback, 75 to 80 here. Sorry, 75 to 8 even on BPTH, which still looks very strong.
Yeah, and let's take a quick look at the imbalance here, guys, if you guys can come to my screen. SNDL, buy-side imbalance of 125,000 seems to be the largest in the NASDAQ. So you see it update.
That's junk.
Yeah, it's not a whole lot going on. Now, NAKD, 100,000 shares roughly
penny
on this. on the sell side. So in terms of value, look at the largest value is actually PDD, 72,000 on the buy side with an imbalance to the buy side of 77,000. That's not a whole lot going on in the imbalance side of things, but you are seeing stocks move. Specifically, Piton has now taken 110. Wow. We were talking about it at 109 with a spread of 80 cents, and now it's actually closed the spread and above 110. That's impressive, actually, by quite a bit. But for now, Microsoft getting closer and closer to that 306, so that could be a potential long. Obviously, Baba is sitting at 170. We've got to get that break to the upside. AMC coming off a little bit, but again, the stop is just below 37, so we're still about 20 cents away. And here we are with 30 seconds left. Neil, do you want to take this into the end?
Absolutely. I think, look, you guys already saw it because he was lurking in the background there, but Trade TV Randy is going to be on the bell. So I guess cover up those earbuds a little bit because it's going to be, as usual, a loud opening. Watching that 110, I think, could be anything on the AMD, but do not forget Alibaba, that 170. Neo already making a bit of a move to the downside. As I dropped the countdown for you on Tuesday, we got 8, 7, 6, Kara 17 level going to be tested right away at the open. 3, 2, and 1. That was a little bit loud, my friend. That was a little bit loud. Of course, watching that Alibaba trying to get off the schneid there at the open. Oh my goodness, we didn't talk about Coinbase. Apologies for not getting into Coinbase. They did have some negative comments when it came to security and a hack. 255 is a good level on the daily if it can hold that price. Below that, obviously 250 is going to be a good one, but forgot to mention Coinbase. Neo already starting to slide to the downside here. Now, I want to be very patient. This is like that failed breakout through the top. It actually took out the pre-market highs very, very briefly by a couple of pennies. If this pulls through 39, I think the floodgates could open up just a little bit, and then I'm looking to buy that dip. Of course, I got that penny stock, which is looking fantastic, but Alibaba, a couple of tests at 170 and slight pullback to 169. So that breakout's still looming.
Yeah, and look at PDD go. This is exactly what was worrying me earlier. Here we are at 93 and change on PDD. So clearly getting out was a good idea on PDD as we move out of the way and see if we can't grab that long. This thing is taking off now, so let's try to get a bid in there and see if we can't get a fill on the cross back down, if there is a cross back down. There's your bid. Now, what's the stop on this going to be? I'm going to have to give it sub 90, right? It's going to have to be at least $2 on the risk. So let's get that order in there. Another order I'm actually putting in is CAT. I like the break on Caterpillar. Oh man, there's no way I'm getting that fill. I thought I could get 210. This is already at 211 and change. Off the 210 break, I actually wanted to play Caterpillar to the upside. Probably not going to get that. I think that trade's, yeah, probably gone. So let's walk away from that. AMC got stopped out, so there's your loss on AMC. We'll move out of the way on AMC. And what else do we have coming up? Neil, do you have anything new?
I already just took more of a winner in that BXRX. I don't know. We'll throw that one to the gates of hell because I could be sitting in it all day long. I thought it would be 7.75 to 8 on BPTH. It looks like it's checking up here right at 8. I mean, it got down. It barely broke. It got to 98 cents there. Or sorry, $7.98 before it comes right back into the upside. Still hunting 850 is that resistance level. Alibaba is starting to roll over. And then Neo, I remember we didn't like the breakout on Neo. We're looking for the dip buy. Here comes Neo into the downside. I'm actually sitting at the 65 mark. As it approaches this level, you know, I'm going to just want to make sure there isn't anything cataclysmic happening. The bid looks pretty solid around 80, but Neo already looking pretty good here.
Yeah, another order I put in is actually Dash. I was working Dash to the buy side above 185. This was the area. Remember, we were long Dash yesterday in the around 182, and we were looking to take some out in front of this 185. Now that we've actually broken it, I'd like to get in on the buy side of this trade again and see if we can't play this to continue towards 187, 188. So I've got a bid in there. I'm not going to pay what they're asking me to pay right now. The spread is about 40 cents. 185.50 is the bid. I'm not going to pay that, but I am willing to pay close to 185 on the buy side. And yeah, well, actually we got the fill on Dash here. So the stop on this is going to be about $2 or so underneath 183. There's your long on Dash. And looks like Baba wants to go to the downside. Okay, I guess we're going to play the short side on Baba. We'll see how this one goes.
Before we go to Brendan here, just noting that Kara did bounce off that 77, tests that 18 break, comes right back into where it was clustering before. Bought the dip here, 1750. I want to play this one to the north side, guys. Brendo?
CCL, guys, some of the travel stocks, including these cruise lines, very strong out of the gate here. 3% monster print there for CCL at the open.
All right, and we got that fill on PDD on the cross back down. Here we are on PDD, just around 92.13 is the average price. Let's not get too happy with that because the spread on this is insane. It's moving around like crazy. It was just at 93. Now it's back at 92.30. This is going to be quite an exciting ride. For anybody who wants to be on a roller coaster with me on PDD, here we go. Here we are back towards 93. Can we get this thing back towards the highs? Only time will tell because this is going to be quite interesting. Here we are, $1.50 in the money, and we just got filled not too long ago. So quite exciting already on PDD.
Pinduoduo is going absolutely like bonkers, and here comes 170 again. So I still like the breakout on Alibaba. We're going to take it for sure. AMD bounces all the way into that 108 range, guys. So sometimes you're patient. It goes off that 180 a couple of times. I just got that Alibaba trade, so we took the 70 break on Alibaba. We finally got that one long, but we like the dip buy on AMD. We talked about this one. Maybe if it gets down into that 107 to 108 range here, and this is just that 107.50. So I'm going to start in on this one. I got 108.20 for a starter on AMD. Couple of longs, Alibaba, AMD, and then of course I just talked about that Kara, hopefully slipping it in there fast enough for you guys. I could have bought this at 117, 17 even when it bounced at the open. I kind of wanted to see it play at 930 first. Now we've seen it happen. We're buying in front of that 17 level. That's the bottom, of course. And BBTH, I mean, I'd love to be able to tell you that this thing is going crazy, but it's right in that pocket that I don't love. So there's not a heck of a lot that I'm going to be doing with BPTH from $8 to $8.25. So I'm going to have to sit here, wait for it to hopefully test that high or break down below that 775 that we liked.
Okay, so we have options. I'm seeing alerts go off for Baidu as well on a 150 break. We're now 20 cents off again. What do I choose here? I've got Baba to the upside potentially. I've already got my position on PDD, and Baidu is an option as well for the 150 break. I'm not sure. So I kind of have to figure out, I don't want all three. There's no way I'm taking all three in the same sector. So I've got to choose between the 2 out of 3 of them on which direction we can go with. Well, while I make up my mind, here comes Microsoft to the downside, and damn, AMC, look at that bounce right off of 37. Clearly, I got out. I got squeezed out of that right before the bounce. So I guess we're going to be sitting on that loss as we continue on higher. I don't know. Here comes Baba off of 170 again. PDD is taking off, but Baidu is kind of sitting around that 150. So you know what? I might just go ahead and put Baidu on the list as one of the priority stocks for me between the two sectors.
It's like you said, though. If Baba holds that 168, I think the breakout is definitely still looming. I'm watching Microsoft here. I got that car out. My price is actually at 40s. It's pretty much right at 40 here. If it gets up into that $18 range again, I'll definitely take some off. But we said we'd be willing to go both directions on Microsoft, and it's definitely testing the metal. The breakout's still there. It's still looming. We get below that 303. I know it didn't work yesterday, shorting 303, unless you got out right away. But in the event that we actually don't hold up positive today, we're kind of range bound in the morning. We're not doing a heck of a lot. Like, it's only a few points range on the NASDAQ. And I think we're trying to figure out where we're going to go. So I don't want to necessarily be making any bet on a softie. It's either still the same plan, 306 long. If 303 breaks to the downside, I'm willing to just go with the momentum and roll with the punches. Alibaba, like I said, we just got into here on the 170 break. You're going to see it's trying to follow through on that move. You got to pay attention to this like 172.50 area. That's a good place for a first leg target out there, guys. And I think there's also a good chance 175 and 178 will be levels as well. It kind of feels like there might be a chance to do a bit of a dip buy on the way up just because you have those clusters. So I'm willing to get out, reload that type of a game there in Alibaba. That AMD,
here we go.
which, I mean, everyone, like I said, that 110 is not a horrible trade. I prefer to buy dips on a lot of these names. We got into AMD. My 15 minutes not showing execution, so I'll do this for you guys. There we go. So we just got into that AMD right here in front of 108. I still like it as well in front of 107.50. We'll jump back and buy a dip if we can. Brendo, what's up?
I mentioned it briefly there, guys. Pan W, all-time highs first off, and what a move. 420 up to almost 440 there in a straight line for Palo Alto off earnings.
All right, so I got myself into Baba. I'm like, oh, maybe that's a good decision. I'm regretting that really quickly here. Baba coming off aggressively off of that 170. You know what? I'm going to walk away from Baba and just take the profit. It's like a 30-cent winner right now. I'm going to walk away from this. There we go. We're going to walk away from Baba and actually go back towards Baidu. I don't know what Baba's doing, but I don't like it. It's got strength. It has potential to keep on going, but Baidu has a lot more strength. I'm not hating. It's just I'm just picking which is less of a risk for me. And personally, I think I got Baidu on lock better than I do on Baba because I'm not sure everything is taking off as a whole here. AMC 37.80. We got Baba taking off, Baidu taking off. PDD is at 95 and change. wow, it's not even the entire sector because AMC is not part of it, but all of the stocks are taking off at the same time right now, which provides a ton of opportunities.
Yeah, look, obviously I'm going to have missed out on NEO. I got both my dip buys in there. I'm going to go ahead and cancel them because they're no good. And then Kara is going to go to the gates of hell because that just broke that 17 level, so took the shot there. Now, BOVESPA is about $1 in the money. If it gets to that 172, I'll start taking some shares off at 172. But NEO's the one that's going to kick me in the gut here because I wanted to dip buy, and now it's trying to take out that top. Now remember, 39.65 levels on NEO. There is going to be some resistance, and of course that 40 also looms as well. BABA, like I mentioned, was just starting to finally, I guess, continue through and push higher. Now, I know it still has a chance that maybe it wants to pull back in. I'd love to have taken profit out already, but it never really approached 172. That gives me a chance on a dip buy to maybe look at 169.50 on a dip. And I know I'm being patient with AMD. I could be getting more shares here of AMD as it just held that 107.50. And again, I want to be patient with something I think is going to follow the market a little bit more closely. And then same thing with Microsoft. As long as we're inside of that range, I don't want to be getting in too early on that softy trade. Although that is now setting up. It's trying to hold below that 303. So I'm not adding to AMD because I don't want to be sitting here going the other direction in softy, and then I've averaged it on AMD on the dip buy. Brendo?
DD kind of in no man's land here, guys, but nice move to start from 8 up through 850 now. We're clearing some levels over here on the daily chart. 11% for DD, guys.
They're also strong.
Yeah, they're all really strong. Just an update on skills. Remember, this was meant to be a 20-cent for 20-cent trade. Well, I got my 20 cents and then some. Here we are sitting on a 33-cent winner. So I've already gotten half of it out. This wasn't meant to be an exciting trade, but it does seem like it's taking off now. So we're going to let this one ride itself out. Next target, well, there is none. We know there's resistance up here in the 1120s. We might clear 1130. If we get past that, I think 1150 is probably the third target. We'll leave that alone. And PDD, wow, $3.70 in the money on PDD. So at least I caught one of them. I kind of hesitated on Baidu because of BABA. I made 20-something cents on BABA. As I flip back over to Baidu, Baidu's completely gone. It's at 153 now, so that would have been a great winner if I had just gone with Baidu in the first place. But that's okay. So what else do we have? Oh, Kara. I've actually gone ahead and remember, we were thinking long on Kara initially, and then
Took that 17.
You got 17s?
I got out at 17.
Oh,
Should have shorted it though.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to get short actually. I'm trying to get that 17 short. The offer is there. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get it, but again, I like to set up for the day. So if it decides to go down a little bit and come back up, that's fine with me. I'll use 17 as a stop with 18 even, or 17 as the entry with 18 as a stop. And I just saw that Apple actually triggered for me as well. The Apple alert went off. Here we go, 150 break on Apple. That trade I actually want, not 150, 150, 20-something break on Apple. So that I actually want a piece of just because it's actually a big portion of the index. So why not get some of that as well? The stop on that is going to be just below 149.70-ish. Let's call it 149.73, 72, something around that price. So not a whole lot in terms of risk, but if we get that trade, I think then we have some index stocks in play as well.
Yeah, and just to come back to Palo Alto here, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous right now. 436, we're checking in. 440 just held even. So the breakout is definitely looming. Remember, we talked about CrowdStrike because they're the ones that are getting actually added to the index. And of course, earnings, I think, a better catalyst, obviously. But come on, CrowdStrike. There we go. CrowdStrike actually making a similar pop and then coming right back in. So I like support. I mean, I liked it at 250 on CrowdStrike, but yeah, if I have to like this consolidation to 57 to 58, it might have to be that because you're already jailbreak city on Palo Alto, and I don't know if we want to be chasing that one too far. But I think a sympathy play here in CrowdStrike might make a little bit of sense. If I can catch it between 59 and 60, I'll be all over it. Alibaba continues to make its run. Maybe not. Look, it's not nearly as strong as Pinduoduo. But like I said on Pinduoduo, I don't know what the heck was going on with that stock. It was all over the place. So I backed away from it, went to Alibaba, which I felt more comfortable with. I haven't bought the dip because there hasn't been one just yet since the breakout. But I will take it if we dip into that 69.50 range and still looking to take profit in front of 172. Miss V is at the big screen. She's got a familiar name for us. I can already see it.
Hey Neil, support.com is up around 12%. Could you guys take a look at SPRT for us?
Spirit, I know it's support. Oh my goodness. Yeah, okay, so probably should have been an 1150 break. You can't, look, beggars can't be choosers, and this move is already done. So you're pushing into fresh highs. And anytime you're doing that, like it's either halt or $15. And that's the way I'm looking at it here. On a dip, I'm probably looking, you're not going to get 1150, I don't think, unless it's a crazy move down. But if this thing does flush, because that was a 1250 rejection that it just put in, I think we're talking about like 1190 to $12 is where we'd have to pick. And then for Kara, I'm not looking, sorry guys, someone's saying Kara re-entry. I'm not looking long re-entry on Kara. I thought this was going to be bullish off the open. It couldn't hold that cluster. I like you had double bottom here, both post-market action and pre-market. I should have been short when it broke. I didn't go short when it broke. I just got out, and I should have tried it in front of 17. I guess if I get a shot at it, I'll probably have to go right back to the well. I'm still sitting in that penny stock. That one seems like it's going to be fine. Now that BXRX, we'll just short it at that 7-11 and kind of hang on to it. Microsoft, which is kind of defying expectations here, still range bound on Microsoft. No break, and it doesn't feel like that break is coming, but it looks like we're going to get that downside action through 303 on Softy after all. Brendo?
LVS, guys, updated some MGM and LVS, both updated some Macau numbers this morning, so a nice pop for both of those. Here's LVS, 4.5%, decent volume here, broke 41 right out of the gate there for Las Vegas Sands.
All right, as PDD comes back in a little bit, we're going to have to move the trailing stop. I have an offer out in front of 95.50 to get some out there. Otherwise, the stop is actually going to be put just underneath 93.50. So see if we can't get some, run some protection on this, at least lock in at about $1 or so, $1.37 on PDD. What else do we have? Well, Apple, man, Apple's at 84 now. You see this chart on Apple taking off. I try to get some at 20-something. Yeah, no, it's gone. No, I didn't get it. It's gone at 84. I'm probably going to have to pull the order on that and run some protection here. Oh, FUTU is another trade I'm looking at. Long in front of 98. I'm going to wait a little bit to get this entry first, though. But I am looking at long in front of 98 with a 97 stop. So not a whole lot in terms of risk, just $1 or so. But we're going to take a shot at that 100. That's the target. If we can get up there, that would be amazing. One thing I do have to do is just make sure that this gets protected. What's up, Neil?
It's got to be VPTH. I mean, sometimes it happens fast and life comes at you fast. 850 came at you real fast, and it was just an absolute, like there was 1 second, man. Like it goes up to 850 and then hard rejection. So that was a level all morning long. You kind of see me light here, like, and I wanted this one off of 850. I'm not going to get it, and you're going to see that hard rejection. If it comes back, that 785 to 8 level, I think that's probably the only place I'll play it on a pullback to short, because remember we said there'd be support down around that 735. So that hard rejection checks up at 735, which does give me some cover for hopefully it popping back into that 85 to 8 range. And if I get that, that's where I'd like to short. I don't want to chase it. I've already missed my entry once, so let's see if it actually gives me a price that I'm willing to go into the short side of the trade. But there goes BPTH. I mean, you got to be kidding me. It finally gives you that entry point. Still in AMD. I mean, AMD, it pops in the money like 20 cents or so. It goes out of the money like 20 cents or so. Not very exciting there. It's kind of like how I'm waiting on Microsoft to make up its mind. AMD doing about the same thing. But BPTH, if I've missed this one for good, I'm going to be sick. Brendo?
Wasn't terribly active in the pre-market here, guys, but worth mentioning Airbnb, the CEO saying they were going to house up to 20,000 Afghan refugees. So a great story for Airbnb out this morning in the pre-market there. 4.5%, just straight to the upside for Airbnb.
Just an update on PDD. I'm out of PDD completely. Well, that move off of 96 was fairly aggressive. So here I am, fully out of the position. That was a $1.13, $1.14 winner. I was much larger at one point, but hey, this thing moves fast. We know how aggressive it can be. The best you can do is really try to let it go as much as you can while protecting some profits. Well, I try to protect as much as I can. I locked in $1 and change. But this makes me think now, what is happening with this sector? Because BABA is hesitating big time at 170, and you're seeing these stocks that were flying hard, PDD specifically, now coming back in as well. So hey, you know what? Maybe that BABA short at 168 is that much better now after this kind of run through 170. So that is what I'm looking at now. I really like the idea of the short on BABA through 168 at this point. I
mean, I got my stops. If it breaks 168, that's where I'm getting out for sure. But I'm looking at FUTU up 7%, and I'm looking at this level here where it flushed at 98.6 and then 98.5, and then it just failed, broke through 99, and is retesting that same one. And that's now setting up for a short in that particular price. So look, man, I love Alibaba. We've been talking about it for the long term in this entire sector, but you are getting some of these signals into the downside. And while that's happening, I mean, look, I'm going to sit in this bad boy as long as I can here, that BXRX, but it just continues to make pushes into the downside. So sometimes you sit in these ones and they're relatively easy to short. BXRX checks all the boxes here. I might be in this one all day long. Brendo?
Medtronic, guys, another one that reported. This is a medical equipment maker, and they also got FDA approval for one of their new treatments as well, for one that was in the works for quite some time. I was reading this morning. But anyways, MDT, 3% here straight to the upside through 132 there. There was a volume alert.
All right, something I'm going to do. I feel like a lot of people would be excited about this. PLTR is back on the list. I believe this is one of Sean's favorite stocks.
A little bit.
A little bit? Oh, no.
Bit.
Okay.
A little bit.
Okay, I was thinking a 25 break on PLTR. I'm still analyzing what the risk is on this.
Didn't already break.
The risk is going to be. Yeah, it did break, but I just got the confirmation of volume for me. I'm thinking 25 long. The stop on this isn't going to be large. It's going to be like 10 cents, 10 to 12 cents. See if we can actually get a good risk reward by going long there and trying to get out in front of 20. Again, it's a tight trade, tight trade. If we get that upside move, then that'd be stellar. But just temper your expectations a little bit, given how it's been playing. What else do we have here? I've got Oh, you know what? I actually wanted to talk about this. KWEB is the Chinese ETF, the internet ETF that we have. It's called the Crane Shares CSI China Internet ETF, and that was actually one that I was actually looking at earlier in the day, given how stocks were moving, the stocks in that sector were moving together, and it just took off through 48.50. If you ever wanted to know how to play all these at the same time, all the JDs, the PDDs, and the BABAs, well, here you go. KWEB as an ETF. There's not a whole lot you can do with it right now. The trade was there at 48.50 and it just took off. That trade's gone. I also wouldn't catch it on a pullback, but it is an interesting thing to look at. SKLZ, well, here we are, out completely flat underneath 1110. Remember, there was a resistance zone, 1110 to 1120. If we could clear it, I was going to let it go. First target was around 1110. It came right off of 1120, so I'm done. I've made my risk. I've made my 20 cents. I put up 20 cents to get the trade. I've made my trade, and I'm going to walk away from this. There's no point in holding on to this at this point. Let's see what else. I don't have a whole lot else that's popping off on the radar.
Yeah, this CrowdStrike, I mean, forget about being patient. Like, whatever, man. Like, I was trying to be patient with this one, catching it down in, 59 to 60 range. You're going to see it breaking out through those highs. So 265 is now come and gone here on CrowdStrike. Now keep in mind, remember we talked about the daily chart? 270 is a wall on CrowdStrike, and you do have that big catalyst, of course, getting added to the 100, but it's Palo Alto earnings also dragging us to the upside here, because that was a blowout. 270, if I got to pick one, I mean 270 is going to be a level for me no matter what here on CrowdStrike, having missed a dip buy already. Can't get into this Kara. It just continues to flush, right? So if I got out of the long, I mean, that means I obviously don't have much of an excuse. Like, the liquidity was there. I could have got short through that 17. I did not. Maybe there's a pop to be had. I don't think it's going to happen for me unless we get like a 1650. And BPTH is still held 735 for now. If it pops back and I still like it in front of 8 even. Brendo, what do you got, bud?
Yeah, that reversal was pretty amazing on BPTH. Planet Fitness, guys, volume not even worth talking about, but worth mentioning. Morgan Stanley with a positive note on Planet Fitness today, talking about the reopening side of things and how gyms will bounce back eventually. So up nicely here for PLNT.
I don't know, why? Why couldn't you just slow down a little bit? Give me a chance to get that short. That order's been in there for a while. There's no chance I'm getting that fill. Oh man, okay, I guess we gotta go and cancel that. That would have been a great short, actually. Unfortunately, that is a missed trade. What else do we have? Oh man, PDD bouncing up right back towards that 95. Well, we're out. We're gonna walk away. I'm done with PDD. I've made my money. I've lost 50 cents and then made $1.30 something. I'm gonna walk away from this. Baba's settling up as well. Let's take a quick look.
You know what? To be honest with you guys, so I'm gonna go and do this. I've looked at gift. Oh, I hit the wrong key. Oh, sorry. That should be gift horse to mouth. I've looked at gift horse to mouth already once on Alibaba, and I said, look, it came down. I'm like, I'll do a dip buy. 168 is going to be my stop. But I hadn't taken anything off of this trade. So you have this cluster up here, this 170.50 into this 171.30, which is the current high. So I'll go ahead and lighten the load at that position because I don't want the market rolling over me. Still holding on to that AMD, which is bouncing to the downside. I can't get softy doing too much of anything. I mean, obviously the market is holding basically at this flat range, only a few points up or down, whether you look at the NASDAQ or the ES, and that's why we're probably not getting a direction on Microsoft. So that breakout at 306 feels like there's almost no chance it's going to happen. BPTH, for those of you that are bulls, it's really starting to come down into this level here, and you don't want it taking out that 735. If it bounces, I'm still looking to catch something short, probably into that 8 level if we can get it, but it's Kara that's absolutely falling like a rock here, and I've missed both BPTH and Kara, which is not kind of like me, so I'm kind of not happy with myself about either one of those. Coinbase we did quickly talk about. That flushed all the way to 253. I like 250 more for a dip buy. But if this thing sniffs 260 again, I'm shorting Coinbase in front of 260 for sure.
Yeah, things are slowing down fairly quickly. It was really exciting for a little bit there, and then now everything has gone quiet. If stocks that you're working with, SKLZ is gone. Baba is kind of is still messing around with that 170. Baidu is actually coming off that 154. It came off fairly aggressively, and now it's actually trying to get back up there and struggling a little bit around that 152. I'm fairly close to dumping my position on Dash. That's starting to stall out as well. Let's take a quick look at the Dash chart. What I wanted to play was that break above 185, and I have no clue what's going on with volume, but volume is getting tied up here above this 185, and in front of this 186. It was in the money for a little bit, but I think we're losing that in terms of help from the buy side. That might be gone as well. So we're going to walk away from Dash as well, and we're probably going to end up flat. So if you have some stocks that you guys are looking at, that is...
I'll give one here, new position alert. Neo comes all the way to the bottom again, like really? So look, I like 38.5. You know we talked about that in the pre-market, so it's going to be the wrong price to dip buy at. This time it actually bounces again off the low. So once it checks up here, I get some in the mid-90s. Now because I like 38.50 first, I don't mind stopping out at the current low of the day and then reimagining myself getting long, getting back along off those levels that we liked in the pre-market. So we're finally into NIO here, and watch out, jumping over to that SPRT, that's heading right back towards its top. Rendo?
GameStop. Anyone? Nice day for GameStop so far, up 6% here. I just noticed. Not seeing anything significantly off the bat, but we'll have a look more carefully here. 6% for GME, guys.
You know, when AMC is being, or when GME is talked about, we got to look at AMC. What happened there? Oh boy. Oh, there we go. That was an unnecessary loss, it looks like. Well, here we are above 38. Now what? 38.50 is next up on deck. Now that we've cleared this area that was resistance above that, just underneath that 38, you're probably going to use that as support. We can probably get to that 38.30 mark before we hit some resistance. So for anyone who was able to hold on, because I clearly wasn't able to hold on, I got out just below 37. For anyone who's still holding on, great job, because that is a stellar winner. You're actually pretty well technically set up as well to the upside. So this is actually quite, if I still had this, I mean, I'd probably just let it go and see how far it goes, because you've got some support now. Now, the way it's moved above 38, I think you've got some decent support to work with. What I am starting to look at is Baba. I'm scrutinizing Baba more and more. Why are we struggling so much around 170? And the more and more it does this, I'm looking at 168 thinking, yes, I'm just waiting for this break to happen on 168 on Baba so we can actually get going. What else are you guys looking at?
So I don't want look. I got that Coinbase finally. It just tested up to 59, so I got 58.75. There's a new position alert there. 60.50 is the high of the day. We'll get out. Look, this GME and GameStop are obviously making a bit of a run, but when you look at the daily chart, you can almost forget about it. But sorry, you can almost forget about it in terms of resistance until you probably get to 185, which is $10 away from this level. So you do have some levels to the upside that you have to be concerned with. But this, I mean, it's not, I'm not saying it's air, but it's pretty close to it. Now, 175, it just did a bit of an even dollar. I guess 75 is an even, but it just did a bit of an even dollar break and then fail back in through. Those can tend to be a little bit dirty, but the momentum not slowing that much. A lot of times it'll be a more harsh reversal through that downside, guys. So watching that GameStop for sure, but 175 breaks and holds, and then you really are looking up to that 185 level. So getting a bit of movement there. Alibaba continues to test for me here, that 170 level over and over again. So it was a good idea to take some profit out of it. That made a lot of sense at the time. Will I reload one more time in front of 168? Yeah, sure, my stop is down there. I'm not believing I'm wrong on the long and Baba until 60 goes, but you're running out of time for that to happen, and that does take me over to Futu because that is now continuing to reject. I don't love the idea of being long one, short the other, but when I look at that 15-minute chart, it absolutely is setting up for a short and has been setting up for a short off of this 98 half level, which it has failed broken through. You have 100 even as a psychological level. You have Alibaba holding up here, and you have some more interest, I think, probably coming into some of the meme names, away from some of the Chinese names, at least so far this morning. All that leads me to wanting to jump into this Futu trade. If I can get 98s, I'm going to take some 98s here if we can get it. And then, look, my stop will be at the high of the day. If we roll over here, and even if BOBA breaks 168, I might like this one short better.
Yeah, a couple things that just popped. Well, let's look at PLTR. Well, that fill's not coming in. I never got filled in front of 25, and here we are 20 cents away. That's already reached the first potential resistance point, so I think we got to walk away from that trade. Airbnb, wow. Airbnb taking out 148 and just taking off. Like here, 155 and change now on Airbnb, straight up for anyone who's riding that trade. Because it came to mind because somebody yesterday in the chat was like, well, I'm buying Airbnb. I'm like, what? Okay. Today I just brought it up. Wow, it just took off right off the open. That's quite the trade for anyone who bought that yesterday. Good job, because that is a stellar entry on Airbnb. Let's take a quick look at Apple, because I know I was trying to get into Apple and kind of let it go at that point. Why is that chart not changing over? Apple is at, where is that, 150.60. We were trying to get some 150.25s in there. I've pulled the order. Now that we've gone all as high as we've gotten around that 150.75 or so, I think coming back down is not a good idea. So I'm going to pull, I've already pulled that order actually. And in the meantime, we're waiting for more stocks. Brendan's got what's happening now.
Hey guys, yeah, positive numbers happening now. Let's have a look at North America here. S&P up 0.2. We have the Dow about the same. The NASDAQ trying to lead still, 0.34 for the composite. Only 0.18 for the 100, however. The Russell, 0.5% to the upside. Small caps remain strong again today. Here in Toronto, about 0.3 overall for the TSX. Couple of things we were talking about in the pre-market. Peloton did give you a nice little trade there. 109.50 up to 112. It's setting up once again like it wants to take a run at day highs, up 4.3% for Peloton. Microsoft, on the other hand, did test session highs right at the open, but straight to the downside, broke that support, looking like it might want to test lower guys for Softy. Back over to you.
We're sitting here having just got both Futu and of course the short in Coinbase there, and Softy's still holding that 303 line. So as long as it holds that level, and that was going to be the one. It was the same. I guess it was the same short that Arun had to the setup. If it's not breaking that 306, you got to figure it's going to break this down. But the market is going absolutely sideways on us here, and you can't ignore that. I know we're going to look at support.com. Have to. It didn't quite get back up to test those highs. I was mentioning it was getting towards those highs here, that 1250 area. I thought we'd get a retest of 1270. I don't have anything on the top side, so I was thinking maybe 15. It did pull back into that 1160 range, but I got enough positions on to worry about. Coinbase, which we said we'd short in front of that 260 level. I got first leg, didn't get second. This was at 259.88 that I was sitting. Doesn't quite, goes really, really close into that range. I mean, it got like 5 cents away from it before not giving me the fill. Pops down into what was a pre-market low here. I'll take some out in front of 257, see if we can't rinse and repeat that action, but I'm starting to favor the rollover here on a lot of these names. That's why I want to jump into Coinbase. That's why I've hedged my bets here, going short into Futu, getting a starter position as Alibaba comes off here one more time. So it does feel like some of the money is coming out of the Chinese names, but they haven't broken down just yet. BABA above 168 means there's a chance that it could go, and I'm playing both ends of that coin. I've just chosen Futu because it has a good setup for that short trade.
Yeah, I like the idea of this rolling off, especially with the amount of volume that was spent. Volume means money, well, means shares mean money. The amount of money spent above 170 on the buy side and not being able to push this thing higher, this is the weakest of the bunch, because you saw Baidu take off, you saw PDD take off, BABA tried and failed. So for me, a 168 break is an automatic entry. I've already set the triggers up there or down there. So if we do break that, I do want to be on the long side. As soon as it happens, I want to be a part of this. And that's just the way it's been moving around, right? In terms of the broad market, let's take a quick look at this, because we never actually did this just yet since the market's open. We haven't done a whole lot in terms of movement, but it does look like we are building the base in front of that 170. Again, I am looking for longs in front of 170 or 44.70 as a stop. I prefer it away from 85 and closer to 80. Below 80 and above, well, between 70 and 80 would be the preferable price for a long. But for now, it does look like 85 is going to be the point that it wants to hold on to. I'm not comfortable going long here just because of how well we've kind of just around 2 o'clock or so, we were able to drive this in a linear fashion straight from 44.90 all the way back down to 44.80, which makes me kind of hesitate about the volume here. It was pre-market, but still important distinctions in how the stock moves or how the index is moving. So if we can get it back under 44.80, allows me to actually get a much better risk-reward ratio on this. As I say this, somebody in the chat was mentioning BPTH. Okay, BPTH taking out that 620, which was the lowest point we went in the pre-market since we took off around 7 o'clock this morning. So now, if we can actually get underneath here and actually settle in, I would like to actually play on this on the short side because of how we opened. Remember, we were long, or not long, we were trying to go long around that 806 mark, and then I pulled the order when I realized that the way it was moving wasn't exactly the greatest for a support push. Now, as we take out all the any sort of support zones we had, down 720, 770 here, and 8 even, it opens a downside door wide open. Well, it opens a downside door. So I'm going to go for the short here. I'm just going to wait a little bit more before I can actually take that shot. As I'm talking, Baba is back above 170. Okay, I guess we're going to play this game again. So we're going to wait on Baba, still at 168, but I do like the idea of BPTH on the short side.
We'll do this one and we'll power it up for Coinbase here, but missed it by that much. I just tweeted out. If you guys know where that's from, that's Get Smart, which is one of the funniest shows in the history of television. But if you've never seen Get Smart, make sure you watch the original show. Steve Carroll was pretty good in the, I think, he did a remake of it. It continues down into VWAP, and it's bouncing a little bit here. I can tell you this much, and I want to remind everybody that memes and movers, look, I know it hasn't been here for a couple of days, and it's going to come back 100%. I can tell you right now, like Trader Prad and Miss V are very excited about it. Speaking of which, I've heard Trader Prad like snapping the fingers, going nuts, because without even looking, I promise you, he's probably crushing that AMC and GameStop movement, one or the other. But Miss V, either way, I know you're excited, but have you been able to my first question is, have you been able to trade? Because I know you've been doing your trading recently. My second question is, I felt like we were close to the 1,000 likes. We got like really, really close to it, yet we didn't go over the hump. We just got a good look on Coinbase. Alibaba's starting to come back in here. The winner's starting to pop a little bit. Where are we sitting? Because we got so close to that 1,000 mark, I thought.
For asking. Unfortunately, no, I'm out of the position, but it's not 4 p.m. yet, so who knows, maybe I'll get into some great trade. And right, Neil, guys, please make sure you like this video. Your support means so much to us. Please help us improve YouTube algorithm, and also we want to know you like what we do. We have 6,000 of people watching and not even 1,000 likes. Let's change it and turn thumbs to the upside. Back to you, Neil.
That feels a little bit light to me. I feel like we should have been getting to that 1,000 mark. It's not just about the ideas for trading, guys. Sometimes you have to reverse field. You've actually seen that a couple of times here, right? Like Alibaba, I know we love Alibaba, but I'm taking profits in that 170.50 range. If all it wants to do is give you $1, when you take it, and then we look for a quick short trade idea, and that's going to be rolling over on Futu because there had to be something in the sector that was setting up for the short side. So now it's 98.5 on that one. I'll take a quick little buck out if I can get it because we have a wall here at 97. So sometimes you have to be able to react a little bit. I'm going to miss out on some of the small caps. You take a step back, you sit back in, and start thinking about where the other setups are going to be because you have a plan of action. And there we are. Thank you guys so much for getting us to that 15,000 likes. Cannot keep Brennan waiting because I think we got some news. Sorry, buddy.
I read in the pre-market, guys. Interesting note here. I read in the pre-market 19.3% for the S&P going into today, year to date. Here's Wells Fargo just out a couple of minutes ago, guys, saying 8% still on the table, in addition to 19.3%. Where we stood this morning through the end of the year. So the market is strong, to say the least. But TKAT, I wanted to mention as well, popped up there, an NFT name going a little crazy here, 35%. Not seeing any headlines yet.
Look, man, if it's not the Ether Rock, then I don't care about the, I'm just kidding about the NFT. Someone paid like $1.3 million for one of those Ether Rocks, which is, it's amazing. All the reasons why people love the blockchain. But hey, look, I mentioned Futu there also before I give it to you, Room. We did get some out there, like I said, off of this low here at 97.30. I know I'm playing both ends of this, but Alibaba, which is in the money, 30 cents to the long, and Futu, which is in the money to the short. I just wanted exposure to both sides of this trade, and it's possible to make money overall, even with the short and the long, because one sets up for the long and is holding a level, the other one set up for a short. That way, either direction these Chinese stocks goes, I think I should stand to win.
Yeah, they're all rotating around. So trading-wise, I actually am starting to favor, like I think I've been saying this too, I've been favoring the short side reversal just because of how strong we were off the open on these Chinese names, PDD, Baba, Baidu, Baba being the laggard of the three of them. So I'm looking at Baba. I like the 168 short. And BPTH, as I see this, I've got to get that order in there. I kind of forgot to do that. Let's get that order on BPTH to get the short side play just underneath 720. We've cleared any zones that we need to worry about. So now short side play with the 770. Well, actually, it's going to have to be an 8 even stop. 80 cents. Yeah, I've got space to the downside. So we can actually take that risk, 80 cents or so to the downside with 8 even stop on the top end. And let's talk about the indexes just because we were actually coming off a little bit here. No, we're right back. We were close to around 82, and I'm like, oh, there's a real chance that we actually come back below 80. No, but we're right back to 84 and change. So I guess we're going sideways on that for now. Baba is actually starting to move now strong. 171 it's at as we get closer and closer to that high, which is around 171.50 or so. You know what just popped off on my radar? JD. I don't know what JD is doing. It's up 25% on the day, and it's actually approaching day highs here at 73.50. That is impressive on JD. So that's one strong stock right off that 72 support level and bounces right back towards 73.50. So it seems like we're all looking at a lot of stocks in the same sector. So if anyone is trading anything else that actually is, well, we know Airbnb is moving higher.
That's a crazy move. I know.
Yeah.
People are saying Robinhood's a strong play. I'll tell you this much. Just watching, I check back in on spot price because we're holding 48.5 in Bitcoin. AMD's starting to come back, but I think that one, I could be in AMD a little bit longer than normal. It doesn't really set up as a scalp trade for me, so I'm not going to go down that path. But just sort of talking about Robinhood, I'll show that one in a second. Coinbase was just cruising for a bruising and then bounced hard off of VWAP as I checked to see, are we still sitting on lows? We absolutely are. And then we're right back testing that 260. So I get right back into this one and then checked over on Hood because you guys were mentioning it. And look at this just sort of trending to the upside as well. So Robinhood looking very, very strong, which is interesting because you're getting this pullback on Bitcoin, and sometimes there is that correlation. Obviously, I care more about it with Coinbase than I do on Robinhood. 48, not a gigantic level on Hood. I know 50 is going to be one if it ever gets to that price, guys. AMD, like I said, you know, as long as it holds that 107 to 107.50 bottom, I like it to the long side, and we're going to hang out in that AMD trade until it probably breaks back above 108, and then we can start thinking about taking some profit out there. Look, that BRTX, it's just sort of BXRX. I know you're going to see me sitting in this one to the short side of the trade. It's starting to get to that point where I got to take another leg off here. I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous. I'm not buying. I had no bids. This is just flushing into the downside. I had no bids in front of 60, which kind of doesn't make any sense. So sitting on here at that in front of that 61, I'm just going to go ahead and take a fill at 61.2, holding a 70 short, and then missing out on the pop. Right. So there was a lot happening. And I know I'm usually in the small caps, but I missed out on a monster short opportunity, both in Kara and that other one, whatever, it's BPTH. Missed both of those. And then, of course, you get the pop here in BXRX. And that's going to be because I'm sitting in most of these Chinese names at Baba. Neo was a bit of an idea for us that we had, missing the dip buy on that one. Then getting into this Futu, Coinbase. There's a lot to be had here. So sometimes you have to move the focus. I only got this one on the small cap side, and it's working, you know, deep in the money here, over a 10% move, and I think it can go all the way back to 52. This sets up as one that could go all the way in. I didn't see any real news that made any sense to me as to why it was gapping into 80 cents. So you got a good short. I'm just going to hang on to it. I think it gives everything back. Yeah,
let's go back to Hood. Actually, this is since the guys in the chat mentioned it. Or the people in the chat mentioned it. I actually pulled this up, and I remember marking off 47.50 as a level I wanted to work with. So here we are sitting in front of it. I've actually gone ahead and put this down as 47.50 break or 45.50 break. Whichever direction we go, I like to take the shot. I know we've been above it, but I want to see some trading above it before I decide to go long. But if I do decide to take a trade, it's going to be either long above 47.50 or it's going to be a short below 45.50. And just like Baba, we'll use the opposite side as a stop. So it'll be about $2 in risk, but we have enough space, especially to the upside, to make that back. So we'll be okay if we decide to go for the long, but that is the trade on Hood that I'm looking at as well. And here comes PDD. Man, PDD just falling off again now, back into the low 92 and change area. This is going to be interesting because if they take 90, I would say this breakout was a complete failure. We got as high as 96. And then we're going to come back down towards 90. That opens the door. Remember, I was initially short and then I dumped it for a small loser because I thought there was some selling. If we can clear that entire zone, I would love to be on the short side of that. Another stock that has been taking off, and we were looking at this in the pre-market, and Palo Alto. And I know, Neil, you mentioned it as well. It is at 437. When I sat down, I was looking at it, I'm like, oh, if this gets down to 410 and change, I think I can justify a long down in that area. This thing was at 420 and is now at 437.
Did you say 420?
Yeah, it was at 420 earlier in the day when we came on.
Thanks, Lucas. Lucas knows, man. Lucas knows.
Oh, I stepped right into that one, eh? But yeah, it's taken off to 440.
Bang, bang.
And here we are. I don't know how you even play this now. The risk on this is so large that I think I'm just going to have to move this off the radar and let that go. PLTR is still going at 25 and change. That trade, again, 25 break. We've met our targets. There's no way I can actually leave any orders in there at this point. But the only trade I do have left, only trade on my radar, and that I have actually taken is BPTH. It was in the money for about 10 cents or so off that 720 break. 8 even is going to be the stop. We are looking for this to go for a full out move back down towards the 6s. That is the game plan. But we'll see how this plays out. It is hesitating quite a bit, though.
I would look, if that thing pops to 8, I'll short it. But I've been waiting for it to make a pop into 775 to 8 for a while. There is a 100K bid here on NASDAQ at 158 on Airbnb. And this is the 157.50 level on the daily chart on Airbnb. And then this is, come on, show it. Where is it? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? There you are. There you are, NASDAQ. That's the offer sitting at 158. If it rejects at this, you've got a level on the daily chart. You've got a hard buyer, a hard seller, I should say. If this turns at 158, I'll take my first shot at Airbnb, but it's really squeezing up hard. Brendan?
A recent runner here, DATS, 11% to the upside again today, looking like volume coming in once again, guys. Dat Chat back to the upside, not seeing any headlines.
DATS, okay. I've never.
Man, that DATS. Everyone's been talking about DATS, and look, I'm not sitting here trying to. We never want to be ignoring names like this, but oh, here comes it. Here it comes. Here it comes. To get on this. Here comes that Airbnb. It's actually been consolidating. I should have shown you this, guys. It consolidated at 55, which is a round number, but you looked at it and it was 157.50 that stood out, and now it's right at that level, and it has a seller at 158. Now, if it breaks 158, like, I'm not trying to get cute about this trade on Airbnb. I did add to it to get myself a 75 print price. Which kind of gives me a better price going into it. That's what I wanted. I was chasing it a bit at first, and I said, now let's wait to get a better price here. Now, if we flush down, I got to think about at least taking some off in the 156.5 range. 155 for darn sure on this type of a setup. You know I'm going to be taking some out there if you guys have been watching the show long enough. But the first things first, always find a level on the daily chart, right? 157.50 stood out, but it had broken. So the only reason I'm able to take this trade here is then, boom, size shows up there at 158. Now I have another catalyst to maybe push it into the downside. I'm not, if it can't follow through, I'm not even talking about VWAP at 154. I'm talking 155, 155 half. If it can't follow through down into that level, I'm not averaging into this thing again. Like, that was a one shot. I feel like if it goes up there, they're going to print that guy at 158. I'm going to be out anyway, so no need to get into more shares. Really, Alibaba? So look, here's the thing. Like, there's no part of me that shouldn't be happy that Alibaba is now trying to take out this 171.5. I'm breaking towards those highs. As a matter of fact, Futu is flat. So my Futu short is flat while Alibaba just continues to push higher. But I had decided to take out more shares here at 170.60, thinking that it was going to just hold this range and I was going to be able to get some more shares down at 169.50, better entry price. That never happened, and now we're testing the high again. So now I got to back off Baba, and we're back into breakout mode. It felt like it had slowed down, and maybe if one side of this is going to be wrong, it is going to end up being the Futu short. But thankfully, I've taken some profit on that Futu short. So I'm ever going to put in that, it's kind of a hedge. It's not, but it is, but it isn't. It was set up for a short side trade. I want to make sure that I'm taking profit on the way. So if the market breaks on these Chinese names one way or the other, it's a smaller loss on the one that doesn't go, and then I hold on to the one that does go. So I'm not covering any Alibaba unless I can get some more down below that 170 range, guys. For now, it's working pretty nicely. Just wanted to make sure I hollered that out as it broke the top. And back down, getting towards those lows. Here comes that Airbnb. Now I'm going to get on the bid around this 156 range just to make sure that we don't look that gift horse in the mouth. If I think it's turning at 155, well, you better believe I'm going to bid a 156 area there, guys. And I mean, Arun's been around here long enough. He should have known that if he says 420 like twice, and I'm like, did you say 420? He should have known what was going on with that one. You guys all probably had an idea what was going on with that because we got to hit that graphic. And I don't have that graphic on my board, so I'm always relying on Rob and Lucas to make me look good whenever I do say it. Oh, Coinbase, Coinbase, Coinbase.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm looking at Hood now. Now that, remember, we're looking at 47.50 as a potential entry point with the 45.50 stop. Well, that's definitely starting to look better and better. I'm just waiting for a little bit more before I actually send the order in. We're going to put a bid down there. If it's can keep this kind of momentum, we're going to put a bid down there in front of 47.50 and use 45.50 as your stop. The other stock that I actually wanted to play was DATS. You guys talked about it. I hadn't actually looked at this. I like the idea of going long on DATS. It broke 720 or so, and it actually sets up fairly strong. There's not a whole lot that you can say there's resistance there. So taking a move like that or taking a breakout like that, I think on a pullback, I like to play on the long side. Stop is going to be just below 680, so we're going to mark that off right there. 680 right here. So that's going to be our stop. If we can get that fill, great. If we don't, I'm not too bothered by missing it because it has to be risk controlled, right? The risk has to be under control if I decide to take those shots. It doesn't make sense to be paying up more than you need to. So for now, that's going to be the entry. I'm going to leave that alone. BABA is still, what is going on with BABA? It is trying and it's succeeding, but very, very slowly. And when it does this, it makes me wonder how much volume is getting burned trying to move this thing up, and it is only going up by $1 or so as you see these other PDD and Baidu names that are actually moving well. So I think BABA has got to be one of those names that you really got to keep an eye on to see how it's actually going to trade for the rest of the day, because there might be a trade later on the day. As we wait for that, though, Brendan's actually waiting for something. He's actually at the big board. Yeah, he's actually been at the big board for small cap recap.
Hey guys, yeah, a few to talk about this morning in small cap land. We mentioned a little bit quieter today. There were 2 or 3, and that was about it. This CARA. I want to talk about this because it looks hilarious at this point, but when this thing's trading in $1 range, all pre-market, clear support at 17, clear resistance at 18, you have to have a plan on how you're going to approach trading this. My plan was to short any move into 18 with a very tight stop. So you can literally risk on this trade 20, 25 cents, take your pick, for the possibility of $1 to the downside. If it breaks 18, you can flip long and take that side too. But my plan was to, again, short in front of 18, tight risk, take it out in front of 17. That's exactly what I did. When this is trading in such a tight range in the pre-market, you obviously don't know that this is going to happen. The other side of that trade is obviously adding to this when it does break down through 17. But it looks kind of laughable at this point. But I followed my plan, so I'm happy with that. VVOS, the one I talked about just before the open, I mentioned 6, doesn't get anywhere near that. Gave you a couple of quick scalps to the downside, just kind of grinding its way to the downside. BPTH, anytime I see this kind of a reversal on one of these little tiny stocks that's doing a lot of volume in the pre-market, that's a huge green light if you want to short. It's a red light. Get out of the way if you're trying to be long this thing. So it gets through the day high, slams back down through 8, gives you an average price 782.8. We're breaking 2 day lows now under 7, guys, for BPTH. So great opportunity on that one as well. Back over to you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're all over that one, Brendo. I mean, I find myself, this is one of those mornings where he's absolute GOAT. I just don't have the small caps on. I don't think it was a misread. I just wasn't on the level 2 when you get that crazy wick. And if you're not there, you're not getting BPTH. AMD, I said, would be a bit of a longer hold in here. And I'm still not taking anything out. It needs to chew through 108.50, get back into the pre-market range, and we'll take some out in front of the top. Remember, 110 was a level on AMD, so I want to make sure I'm getting profit out in front of it if we're going to make this move into the upside, which it feels like we're going to be doing here. BABA just checked up at 172, but that one's still continuing to go. So that long looking pretty solid, a couple of dollars in the money here. And Futu holding up on the short end of the trade. But it's this Airbnb, and again, if you're going to go counter trend, like I said, I'm not averaging into this one. If you're going to go counter trend, I'm taking profit out on the way down almost every single time. So it's about to retest the high. I feel no need to jump back in and risk more shares on a break. That seller, I should say, on Airbnb that got us, I guess, that second leg of confidence here. Last time I zoomed in, I just saw him there at 158 again. I'll probably have to go deeper in the book, but from what I've seen is still sitting there at that 158. My out is not going to move there. I'm not moving my target, the next one at 156 and that 155 level for Airbnb. At this particular point, unless I miss my stop, it shouldn't turn into a loser. But I'll knock on wood because I don't want to stop order not hitting on me. That would be kind of embarrassing. And then the other side of that BOBA trade, and the reason why, I was kind of sort of carefully looking where I was going to go here to short one of these Chinese names, and I settled on Futu because it came into a really good level that it was rejecting here, and it was again just this 98.5 area. It had just broken 99, didn't get to 100, and then come back in. So if I wanted something that was on the other end, if BOBA goes, I can hold on to Alibaba into 175 and continue the breakout. But if it did flush through 168. I wanted something that I felt could have a stronger move to the downside, and that was Futu for me. So it is possible Futu takes out the high. Probably means Bob is going to give me a $5 winner anyways. But Futu, if it breaks that high of the day, 99.3, I'll lose $1 on that one. I did get one little scalp trade out here on Futu down at 97.5, and if it pushes again, I'd probably take some more shares out at 97.5. But I'm not going to be adding to this one, guys. And then finally, this was the one I told you guys I'm not really doing anything with AMD off that bottom. I want to be very, very patient adding to it. I want to be very, very patient getting some of it out because the look isn't really off the 1 minute. The look for me on AMD here, and I can zoom in for you, the look here for me was off of this cluster, always this 107 to 108 range, and you go all the way back to all the price acceptance that it had, and then a stronger resistance into support at 106. So you're coming off of that. You had all kinds of acceptance in this range, so this is where I wanted to buy the dip. Now, because this 110 break is looming, I am going to take some profit out in front of it, but I'm holding through a 110 break, definitely into that 111.15 range that you can see up here. So AMD still has some room to run. It's got a ways to go, but I'll finally start taking profit here closer to that 109. So I know it sits in the money, almost a full $1. It has to get to that buck, then I'll start taking some trades off here. Been sitting in it to the long side, but the plan was on a bit of a higher time frame, so I didn't want to really get into the whole, over trade this, scalping it. That was not the way I was approaching AMD. Once it goes that buck, we'll start to take it off. And Airbnb does look like it really, really wants to test, guys. So I'm going to celebrate here. And I keep hitting this one instead of the fist bump. So apologies on that. I mean to hit the fist bump because I like it. We're next to each other. We could actually bump fists. But Airbnb, this stock has been hella strong. And while I got a good level here, I mean, you're going to get a consolidation, it continues the trend, right? So unless it breaks 156.5, the trend is still to the upside. This could absolutely break out. And on the daily chart, it's air up here, 157.50, which has already sort of been taken out. If it breaks it, I want no part of holding the short through 158. Brendo? I
mentioned that TKAT earlier, guys. Here's Dolphin Entertainment, DLPN as well. Back to day highs. So nice little volume spike there at day highs, up 10% for DLPN.
All right, a couple stocks, a couple entries I want to actually talk about. Hood, well, we got that 47.50 long, right? 45.50 is going to be the stop. We are looking for at least $2 on this. In terms of risk reward, that's fine. DATS, because of the chat, I pulled up the chart. I'm like, yes, I like the chart. We are long here at 726 as an average price, and here we are 20 cents in the money. Thank you, chat, for putting up that stock there. And BPTH, I'm still carrying that short. Well, it's not doing a whole lot. We are short just underneath 720, and we are looking for this to crack 7. We got close, but we didn't really get past 7. And man, you guys are talking about CLOV. If you were long there at 825 and change, great. I'm not sure how I can get into this now because this thing is taken off, right? It's at 850 and change. Looking back, there might be some resistance here between 850 and 860. And then if I pull that out even further, I'm going to do it off on my other screens. Between pretty much until 880, there's resistance all the way up. So although it's taking off right now, this thing has to really accelerate to keep this momentum, get some volume behind it, because it is running into some resistance. So if I were long, I'd probably take some profit, not all of it, some profit, because I always like to let things run. So we'll see how far that goes, but it is running into some resistance. So guys, keep putting some stocks in the chat, because I am looking at the charts. I am not ignoring them. I am looking at the charts, trying to help figure out what I want to do. Some of these charts aren't set up for me, but other charts, if they come up, I am going to take them depending on how and what they look like.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, Alibaba continues to go here. So the strength is coming. I know you're excited about that, Shakib. If he hasn't already, like, sipping a Mai Tai or doing whatever he's doing here. A lot of people have been talking about, and we've been mentioning it here too, like that capitulation bottom on some of the Chinese names. This is ADR, obviously, I know that. But we're starting to get into that range. So this is it. This is that 172.50-ish area into 175 that we kind of felt like we pushed through, and hopefully we'll make it all the way through to that 175 range. I'm hanging on to that long. The flip side of the trade, of course, is going to be Futu. So I just want to make sure, like, I'm not ignoring this. I've already taken some profit inside here for a couple of times in Alibaba. Now we're letting it run into that $2.50 range that we've just talked about. Coinbase was a tricky one because the first time throw was like, this setup just looks so simple to me that we're on spot, just, you know, holding and retesting some of those bottoms. Oh, this didn't flip for you guys. Just testing and holding some of those bottoms, so it felt pretty simple. Pops into this 260 level, which was previous resistance. And sometimes, look, this is pre-market action on Coinbase, right? And then what happened when the market opened yesterday? Tried to test the highs and flush through. And I'm not saying you completely ignore all the price action above 260, but it then settled lower. So 260 still sets up for me for a short into that range. And I felt like, okay, we're pulling back from the 5,000 or 50,000, that 51,000 level. It still sets up pretty good. It's like jam one time, like, yeah, it's just going to fall for the rest of the day. No, it gives another shot at that 260. You get back in. Now, I'm going to use a word like, whoa, give me a break. What am I doing here? Don't look at get voice now. It behooves me is a word I want to use. So I use a school word, guys. It behooves me, after it defied my expectations, to go ahead and take some shares out at VWAP again. And that's only because of how it's been reacting here. Now, it sets up and looks fantastic as a short, in my estimation, off that 260. So I want to hold on to it for a bigger move. But I've got to scalp some of this out as a day trader, take advantage of that direct market access, and learn some lessons from, if price action doesn't make sense to you, even if the setup is good, if there's something that, like, your spider sense, you don't like it, and you're given an out that actually makes sense, just trim the position. I can still hold on to it. I can still hope that we test down into that 53 to 55 range on Coinbase, and I still like 260 for a top. I mean, technically 260.50 is the high of the day, but I liked it on the higher time frame. It's just unusually strong to me, and I like Coinbase, and I think it's actually, in the long run, it's actually ramping up off this 250 level. I think it's going to see 300 as long as we don't have a crash in Bitcoin. But for the short side of the trade, I'm only going to hold on to the last little third to see if we get the real push to the downside. Brendo?
Just noticed Shopify having a pretty good day here, guys. They are teaming up with TikTok for in-app shopping features. So Shopify back into some significant levels here on the daily chart, up about 4.5%. Canadian content, although this is the New York listing, obviously. 10:30, let's get a check on how things are shaping up over in Europe. Miss V, what's up?
Hey Brandon, European markets are mostly negative at this hour. Retailer Marks & Spencer trading in London is up more than 4% after Berenberg and Credit Suisse raised their price target on the stock. Back to you.
Yeah, a number of analyst moves on both sides of the pond this morning. So far, so good, though. We are hanging on to positive territory here.
All right, I am actually going through the chat here, looking at stocks that you guys are talking about. TME, I did look at that chart, TKT. A lot of stocks that have already taken off, it's hard to figure out where you can actually get in. Because the way, especially, this is for me specifically, the way I trade, I need them to set up and I need to catch them at the time that they're actually ready for entry. If they've already gone, it's going to be hard. At that point, you're really trying to guess or trying to play that the momentum is going to keep on going. And I have a hard time trading like that. It's not that you don't do that. It's just I just have a hard time trading like that. Everyone has their own strategies, right? Everyone has their own approaches, and whatever your system calls for, that's how you trade. So for me, I kind of just like to kind of get a lay of the land, set up my reads, set up my entries, figure out how I'm gonna go about it, and then just place the orders and let them go, right? So far, I've got Hood at 47.50. We knew we were looking at this 47.50, looking for that long. Here we are approaching 48. Again, we're looking for at least 49.50 before we can actually start to take some profit on this and make the risk worth it. The other one was DATS. That was actually bouncing quite well off that 20 area. Because of the chat, I was able to look at the chart. I like the chart, put the order in, got the fill. I'm up 20 cents. We're going to let this one go, though. We are looking for this to go towards 8 even and change. The other one was BPTH, still flirting around with this 720, not doing a whole lot. So between those three stocks, I'm not seeing a whole lot that I can actually go through with. Apart from that, all the other stocks that I've seen, some of them are actually already gone, so I can't really get involved. I just see that someone mentioned GTS. GTS, yeah, it's gone sideways. Not a whole lot going on there on GTS. DKNG, let's take a quick look at DKNG. Yeah, that's also gone. Right? Let's actually look at the chart on DKNG on this screen here. If I were to have this in the morning, 54.50 would have been the entry. And after that, you just kind of go 54.50 entry, 53.40 stop, and you let it go. But now that it's at 55.60, I mean, the trade is gone. At least the way I'm looking at it, the trade is gone for me. You're in and you're managing, but there's no way I would personally get into a brand new position just because of the way it's moving. And here we go with Hood taking out 48 even. Good sign for Hood. We've been playing this for the last couple days now. And here we are finally getting some movement on Hood to the upside. So again, 49.50 would be the first target. And the reason I say 49.50, one, it matches the risk reward. Second, you see us back on the 18th here. We hesitated quite a bit around 49.50. And then the following, later in the afternoon, we actually used that same area as support. And the fact that we're close to 50 even as a round number, yeah, I think it's time to use that as a great support point or a resistance point and get that trade going into that area to take some profit. So apart from that, not a whole lot going on. But hey, let's take a quick look at the futures. Where are we? 85. We haven't done a whole lot. Remember, first trade I'm looking for on the futures is going to be a setup below 48.80, risking about 10 points. I already have that marker there. 44.70 is that support point, but we need that setup. The risk has to make sense. Below 48.80, I think I can justify the long at that point, but at these prices, I'm not sure I want to step up and take a long. The market's only up, what, 0.25%? NASDAQ's up almost a half, though, but tech being stronger, obvious. I mean, what do we have? We have Facebook up 1%, Microsoft slightly down, Apple's up 0.5%, and, Baba's actually not a big influencer there. What's that?
Amazon's up 1%.
Oh, I don't even have Amazon on my list.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon's getting, look, we talked about this around 3,200 on Amazon. It's just like, I know it's not necessarily moving as crazy as some of the other FANG names there, but look, give me a break. I mean, Amazon, too good to be true here when it popped down below that 32 level, and getting off the schneid and getting back towards some of those highs is going to give you a fantastic risk to return. That I'm not sure you're getting up the other FANG names. Look, I'm not just saying that because I talked about that a couple of days ago. I just think when you put in these lower highs, you're in the market looking very, very strong. You bet in the consumer. Amazon is poised. When people kind of lump this in like Amazon is just a stay-at-home play, and I'm sorry, it's absolutely not. Like, if you can't tell me it's not changing the way we're looking at things. Smart move by them to get some more brick and mortar so they can get that point of sale and delivery a little bit closer and keep that expectation, because everyone loves when they get that same day, and they've had some trouble fulfilling that, and getting more brick and mortar is going to help them be able to do that with their fulfillment centers. Now, here's the problem. When you put on that Futu and Alibaba, a trade that I mentioned, the one side of it is, okay, Alibaba's still above that 172.50. That's fantastic. I mean, I could probably find a key to hit for you guys here for hanging on to that long, and we could probably get that 175 at some point. But the other end of that trade was, of course, going to be Futu. And look, I took some profit on Futu, and it looked like it was going pretty good. Actually, when it broke out to the long, when it broke out at the top here, I actually got too many shares and then reversed into a long. I didn't want the long. I'm already long Alibaba. I didn't play this for a breakout long. I played this for a rollover, that if some of these Chinese stocks were going to come to the downside, I wanted exposure on a short. Futu's the one I liked, despite the fact that Alibaba's been breaking back out for like 20, 30 minutes now. This was actually holding up pretty well. So I felt like if it rolled over, this was going to be the one. Still think it was a good call, but I had to get out if it broke that high of the day. So no longer in Futu, just AMD, which is now, I mean, it got through 109. Looked like it was about to test that high. It's about $1.20 in the money. It got to 150, so I did take some more off there. Now I'm holding. AMD either breaks 110 or I'm reloading down in that 107.50 to 108 range on AMD. That one looking pretty solid for me. And like I just mentioned about Alibaba, looking pretty good. Coinbase here, as I mentioned, it just made sense to take shares off at VWAP. I felt it would roll a little bit stronger to the downside. It's still holding this 260, so all systems are a go. This was another one that's set up for me on more on the 15-minute chart. I know I always show you guys the 1-minute chart for the executions in the morning show, but a lot of times the setups really come from the daily and the 15-minute here. And this one just comes off of not necessarily throwing out that action here at 267, but this was more about Bitcoin holding at 50,000 and 51, the subsequent levels to the upside, and then having this lower level to work with, that 260.50, which is the current high of the day. And then you also have like a nice scalpable level here all the way down into like 256. If we break that, it's right down into that 250. So I like 253 for an area, which just happens to be the bottom here. So Coinbase, just because it looks relatively strong, that's why I had to take some out here, but I'm still hanging on to this short trade. I want to give these more room to go. Speaking of room to go, it's BXRX. And again, if you're tuning in late, when I first sat down, I couldn't actually find news on this one. It turns out, and thank you guys for this being the fantastic community that you guys are. Someone mentioned in the chat the COO or the CFO or the COO. Apologies that I don't know it off by heart here. A COO or the CFO purchasing 50,000 shares was able to see that's the reason it was up. Stock was at 52 cents. I mean, 50,000 shares. Look, it's not that big, right? So the stock is up at like 75 cents on that, and retail sold it at 7 o'clock. And it puts in a consolidation, like a lower high here, which I'd be shorting anyways, even if it was a biopharma on news. Yeah, of course I shorted 70 cents, guys. And then I did miss this opportunity. So I missed this on BXRX. I missed the turn on Kara, only took a long. Like, how embarrassing is it that 17, which we knew was a level, I went long in front of Kara, didn't reverse, that stunk. Missed the 930 like pump at the open on BXRX, which is now sitting at 59 cents. Quickly on its way down to 52 cents, which is where it closed. I think we can get there. And a long way of saying I should have more bids on this stock. I'm just going to go ahead and do that thing where I get on the bid at the even all the way down to 52.5, which is where it closed. So I'll pop some in front of 55.25. I'll pop some in front of 57.25. I'll put a bid at 53 as well, just so I'm in the book in case this one flushes on me. It's a bit lazy on my part to have just been letting this one ride because I'm feeling pretty confident it's going to flush. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'll just get it all out at the bottom. That's not the way to go, guys. I mean, at this particular point, I don't want this turning on me when it's already been pretty good into the downside on a 70 short. So I'm going to make sure we don't look that gift horse in the mouth, and we're going to take some profit out. Nick Dub, thoughts on CRTD? Some more insider buying? Okay, I'm going to look at CRT in a quick little second there, but I want to make sure I actually have some real thoughts on it instead of sort of jumping on it at the fly. AMD pulling back. I'm not thinking of buying it VWAP. Really, the levels I like are between, in the mid 107 range. So I'm probably going to hold off on buying that one if it dips any further.
Yeah, just before I continue on about my positions, we're going to go back to skills here. There was somebody in the chat, Samuel GSI, shout out to you, man. You held on to this, good job. Because I dumped mine at 11.10 and holding on to this through this and getting some movement, that's another 20 cents, especially on a stock like this where you can take a ton of size. That's a huge profit. So good job on holding on because I wasn't able to hold on that drop from 11.25 back down through 11.10. Okay, back onto my positions here. Hood. Well, here we are approaching 49. We're backing off a little bit now. Still, target is 49.50 and change. So we're going to leave that alone, and we're not going to touch this. Even if it comes all the way back, we're not going to touch it. This is set up to go, so we're going to leave this alone and see how that plays out. DATS, well, we're long 726, yeah? 726 and change. We're about 30 cents in the money on this at the moment, so we're going to let that go as well. And BBTH is doing a whole lot of nothing. So in terms of movement, there's not a whole lot coming into play on the stocks that I'm already in, apart from Hood. Everything else seems to be somewhat quiet and kind of moving around. Obviously, that's representative in the futures as well. The way it's been moving on the futures. It's summertime. This is exactly, last week was an aberration because this is what summertime volume looks like on the futures. Apart from the individual stocks that are going crazy, summertime volume trading, this is exactly what you look like. And this is exactly where a lot of people get cut up and lose a ton of money because over trading, trying to simplify, not simplify, but when you're used to trading a certain way and all of a sudden volatility shrinks and then you're trying to adjust for volatility, then you end up over trading because you're going to see way too many things because you're looking at the chart from a micro perspective, right? So I just be a little bit careful on how you're trading, especially these big names, specifically the indexes and whatnot. And we're going to go to Brendan at the board with Sector Watch.
Hey guys, yeah, quick check of the S&P 500 for you here. We are 0.25% in positive territory. Let's figure out What is driving the ship today? First off, wanted to note some of the vaccine names under pressure today. There's Moderna and Pfizer right beside it. 2.6 to the downside, 3.5% for Moderna. To the downside, notably weak on the day. Some consumer discretionary names among the strongest. On the other side of the spectrum here, the travel names all in positive territory. Hotels, we mentioned casinos, there was some positive news. The cruise lines here as well. There's RCL and CCL about 2.5 to 3.5% to the upside. Best Buy 6.6% to the upside. Even the automakers having a nice day there. GM and Ford back in positive territory. There's the airlines down here. AAL, Love, and UAL all about 3% to the upside, along with GE in the industrials group. Among the strongest, STX and WDC, hardware equipment makers under pressure in the tech sector. Overall, this group is positive, but only just. MDT reported 3.9%. We talked about that early on. CI right beside it, same story. Both the energy sector and the materials group over here among the leaders today in positive territory. And then you got all these little guys to the downside. So overall, pretty mixed board, to be honest. It is a positive day, 0.25%, but a little bit flat is a good word to use, guys. Back over to you.
So I do want to get to Nick Dub there. I want to get to CRTD. And look, this is not a day trade because it's not doing volume and it's not moving. I think we might have had a similar question, and apologies. It might have actually been in the members only Q&A yesterday if it wasn't on the live show. So some of you might not know. It might not be kind of repetitive for some of you guys, but it might be for others. Anytime you're making a bet here on a small cap name, and again, I'm only going to go in through like what I'm actually seeing, sort of technically speaking. And we talked about this with a penny stock yesterday. I know it's 250, but small caps nowadays, like the way I would trade things when they were 50 to 80 cents back like 2005 or 2004, 2006, that area, pretty much the same thing applies. It's just a lot of the stocks now are like $2, $3, $4. So a lot of these same things I'm going to look at make sense to me. If you were ever making a play and you believe in the insider buying down these ranges, and you kind of like it when you get officers or insiders that like a stock down at a range like this, always watch out for the fact that it has a history of pumping and dumping. Because that's always going to be important, but you do get some obvious levels to work off of, and that's always the best way to go about playing this. And it's not to say that 250 is a great round number, but you have a bit of a double bottom here at that 250, and then you even have covered at 2, which is what you always want to see, right? Like if you're buying here and you're saying, okay, this is a hero home run play, it's really tricky to say I want to buy at 3 on a penny stock or a small cap name and only give it the 250, right? And that's for a normal stock. You know, you talk about that 50 cents or 20% in this particular case you're going to look at, and you're going to say to yourself, that's a good range. Nah, forget about that. Throw that out. You got to be willing usually to risk a third or sometimes half your money. And if you have a level lower, that makes a heck of a lot of sense here. And I'm not saying go out and buy CRTD, Nick, but if you already liked it for all those reasons, just consider very carefully how much room you want to give it. Because if you think something is going to be a double up or a triple up, and you think it's going to give you a squeeze, and you think it's going to have a catalyst, and again, you're the one doing the research on the stock, sometimes with these penny names, you got to give them a little bit more room, and the obvious stop is going to be that 250. Insiders aren't going to care if that breaks. I mean, $2 does sit right down there in the daily chart, so that's my 2 cents for you there, Nick. Now, we're continuing that run in Alibaba. So I know we're sitting pretty here a little bit, and obviously, Futu wasn't going to work out for me. But you are getting continuing, or I should say, right into that range that we talked about, that 72.5, 175 area that we thought things could slow down. So as we creep a little bit higher into this range, I'm getting close to trailing this. We're not there yet, but I'm getting very close to trailing this one on Alibaba. It gets closer to that 173.75, 174 in the middle of the range. I think I'm going to have to go ahead and do that. It has worked out like gangbusters for me here. I just wish it had been, a little bit more clean on the open for me there. It's been a good trade, but it hasn't been the cleanest of trades. And Coinbase, for the time being, and I know it's getting pretty tight up here, up at that 260 level. But every single time it tests, as long as I've taken some out of VWAP, I can short it a little bit higher, but I'm not letting it go past that 260.50, 260.50, 260, yeah, rinse and repeat, like several times at that same level in the last couple of weeks here. Again, like I said, like not ignoring the price action yesterday above it, but let's remember, it was all kinds of failure above that price as spot prices held below that 50,000 mark. So that's the play on Coinbase. I'm noting that it is unusually strong. I'm definitely scalping off at VWAP every chance that I get. And I've now gone 3 times off this level. If it doesn't break to the downside this time, I will not do it a 4th.
Okay, couple new stocks that I'm looking at now. Apart from the positions I already have, you see that 2 long, 1 short. I'll talk about these after we come back from Brennan.
I just want to mention one more cybersecurity name, guys. Sentinel-1 here, S, having quite the day. This is all-time highs. Just reached all-time highs through 58, so one of the kind of mid-cap range, but 58 big volume spike went off there. Sentinel-1 back to all-time highs. They did announce, there's been obviously a few stories in this group today, but they did announce they're opening a Czech Republic R&D center. So S, moving, guys.
All right, a couple stocks that I want to look at now potentially. CRM, Salesforce, 262.50 break to the upside. I've got it wedged here between 259 and 262.50. Initially, I only had the 259 marked off, and I was looking for a potential bounce off of that, but I kind of just let it go, and I had other things going on, and then I think the long could have been there around 260 half or so. That's fine. That trade's now gone. That trade's been missed, right? So now 262.50 breakout through the top kind of opens the door for an extension here. 261 would be your stop, so you're looking at about $1.60 or so in risk. If you decide to take that top end, that's one trade. And the other one was Square. And this one came to me because of the chat. Guys are looking at Square or mentioning Square as a potential trade as well. That's up 1% on the day. Oh, yeah. And I'm thinking 274 break to the upside as I get the chart up here. 274 break to the upside. It bounced off 274 once. It's coming back down towards 273 now. It's consolidated fairly well. As long as we can hold 272 before we take that 274, I think it really has a chance. You can actually take 274 with a 262 stop. That would make sense. Now, if we say we come back down through 272, well, then the risk opens up on this trade. It would have to be sitting somewhere underneath 269. And I'm not sure I want to put up $4 and change in risk on a trade like this. So it is critical for Square that it actually breaks 274 with the low of that move being above 272. If it does take that out, I think this trade's scratched out for me. For now, we've got a couple options. Hood is coming back in deep now. It was up as high as 49 even. It is coming right back in. Now it's 30 cents in the money after being $1 and change. Again, it's fine. Like I'm okay with this because the setup is there it's more set up for me than just a quick move like that. So I'm okay waiting on this. If it takes the entire day, it takes the entire day. And DATS is bouncing off that 740 even back towards 760 now. Again, target is at least above 8. Depending on how we trade above 8 or around 8, that'll be when I'll be making my decision on whether I'm going to take some profit or let it go. But for now, just those two, and BPTH is just kind of drifting slightly back to the upside. I'm not sure what to make of this. I don't know if that's just support sitting in front of 7 even. That's actually willing to hold this back into that 730 mark. But for now, it does look like that 7 even is going to hold.
Yeah, good look there. I mean, I love that BPTH. You can't get away from it. I've gotten away from that stock, and it's probably a bit of a mistake because it's doing so much volume. As a day trader, if you're looking at things for lunchtime, when we come back here for 3 o'clock, you want to make sure they're moving. And that's what brings me to TKAT, because I know I haven't traded it today. But there's actually a really good point here that's sort of worth mentioning. And the last time we traded at those prices, it's easy to look at the daily chart and just look at it and say, okay, 940. That's it. Like a lot of times, you'll even see me do that too. Like 940, I love it. Gets into that range. I'm going to be shorting TKT for sure, right? Pops up, and this is what these levels look like when you actually pop them in on a 15-minute chart. You're actually going to have the bars here at 8.75, right? So that's a very large range at the top. 875 up to what looks like that 940, probably even 950 you're giving it to. That's a 75 penny range. So when you're making a play like that, knowing it starts at 875, for me anyways, if I get any reason to look at that first 25 penny range, right, like that 875 to 9, that if it fails there, it's worth a look there. And if you're taking profit on the long side of the trade, don't always just sort of sniff it out and say, yeah, but I want it to break 9. It's got room to like 925 to 950. I should hold on to it. Now, sometimes on a parabolic mover like that, you just look at that first leg and it could be a pullback. And it could still break 9 and then fail to break into 950. And then that could be an even bigger turn. Why? Because each one of these consolidation pushes has been close to $1. If it were to do that here and fail to go 40 or 50 cents, that could be a pretty good turn. But you don't want to ignore the fact that 875 was that first level of resistance, and then therefore it might have given you an entry off of 9 even on TKAT. I know I did, because I just did a quick and lazy glance at the daily chart without going to my 15-minute on TKAT, and then of course missed that setup. We're not going to miss money talks, because Brendan's at the big screen right now. Let's see how the Canadian dollar is doing. I see it's in the green.
Hey guys, yeah, currency time, pretty volatile. In fact, once again, I want to show you the CAD over there on the chart. This is a daily chart. Remember, we were talking last week at the end of the week about the big spike down and then back towards 80 now. We're higher, about 0.5% again today. This is 80 up in that consolidation where it spent most of the early part of the summer. That was off of some US dollar weakness, some inflation data, interest rate type headlines. We had that big spike to the downside, including on the US dollar here. It is lower again today, 0.15. Back to 92.82 on the DXY. Euro higher on the day. The Canadian dollar 0.5%. You can see 79.5 back towards that 80 as I mentioned. British pound also higher. These two back to the downside, but only just. Japanese yen, Swiss franc in negative territory, both of them. Australia and New Zealand trade together 1 full percent today for New Zealand. Same story about that 0.8 there for Australia. Turkey is slightly lower on the day. Same story for cryptos down here in negative territory, but we mentioned still holding significant levels there. 48.5 seems to be support for Bitcoin, guys. Back over to you.
I love that support at 48.5. As long as it's above that 47, it's a good level. And look, I know I'm shorting in Coinbase here, but it's been mostly a scalp trade, and you got to play the level 2 sometimes. Oh my gosh, you guys are all about Moderna here, and I turned Arun and said I should have been short this stock. And I'm not even saying that I should have had the top, because the levels that I was playing off of were around that 405 previously, and maybe in front of that. So once we were breaking through there, I don't know that I would have been touching it in the 410 to 415 range, to be honest with you guys. But once it broke, I'll pull it back so this may be a little bit more clean here. Once it broke back below 400, look, you gotta like this area here. Like a few times, it's been like very muted action, pre-market action above that 4 to 405. Only yesterday's push through to that high, and then you get a rejection at that top. So coming back through 400 looks pretty good, and I should have been all over this. Now that it's already pushed through it, you kind of take a bit of a zoom back into this action and say, okay, well, it has a chance to bounce off of like about 385 to 390 here, and if it does, maybe it gives you a shoot back into 395 to 400. That's what I'd be looking for on Moderna, guys. But I'm not going to force the trade. It's 10:55. It's going to be that lunchtime trade. I want it to come to me. I'm already sitting on a few good ones. Alibaba looks pretty good. Now it's into that 173 mid-range, so that one's sitting about $4 in the money. AMD is still bouncing. I'm not adding to AMD unless it's between 107.50 and 108. Otherwise, we're just going to hang on to that. Coinbase, you guys already know the plan there. I want to add Moderna to the list, but I don't want to chase it. And before I let Arun speak here, because I always want to let him drop a mic, let's not forget, I don't want anyone to forget, Memes and Movers is not going anywhere. Every single day when we end the show at 11 o'clock, the entire team starts getting to work on making Memes and Movers the production that it needs to be for you guys. And that's what it's all about here. Trader Pratt and Ms. V are working hard. We got, Maggie's not here right now because she's in the back probably doing something, but obviously Robbie and Lucas are working hard as well to make sure we get that back for you guys. And it is going to happen. Trader Pratt is literally buying gear, which you guys are going to enjoy. It's going to look hilarious, I think, on the show. Anyways, and trading away and doing. And now he's jamming out on the headphones all day long. Just flashing peace like he can see me doing it. Just flashed the peace sign there. But anyways, he's working pretty hard at it, guys, and having a lot of fun. It's going to come back, but only when it's a product you guys deserve. And we're going to be back always for Power Hour. Now I will let Arun drop some mics because BPTH is starting to roll over. And I never shorted that thing once today.
Yeah, BPTH finally starting to take that 7 even, as long as we can hold it, right? If it bounces back towards 710, I think that's going to be a problem. At this point, I've already locked in, what am I short, 18? So I've already locked in about 6-7 cents by shorting in front of 20. Now we just let it go. There's absolutely no target all the way until we get to 6 even. That is my first target. So I'm going to try to make $1 and change on this $7 stock. So that'll be fun if we can make that kind of a return on a $7 stock. One of the position I just took on, Macy's, I like the idea of Macy's taking out this top. And the only reason I took this trade, somebody in the chat mentioned Macy's, oh, is it potentially setting up? And I was like, let me look at the chart. I looked at the chart. I'm like, yeah, I like the idea of taking a risk here. I think this is something I'd be okay with in terms of risk taking. So Here I am long 23.18 and change. Stop is going to be just underneath 22.70. So the risk is about close to 50 cents, just underneath 50 cents or so. Upside, there's no target. So of course, in terms of risk reward, when you have a 50-cent risk with no upside target, I think that's a stellar return there, or at least a trade-off that you're looking for in terms of that positioning. So there I am long on Macy's. Thank you, chat, for putting that up there. BPTH is taking 7 finally, and Hood bouncing back off these 47.50s. Again, it was $1 and change in the money, came all the way back to almost being flat, and here we are back towards 50 cents in the money on Hood. And the only other position I've got, DATS. Man, this has been a slow grind, but hey, we got a stellar fill down in the 26s on 726s on DATS. Here we are at 773. That is a 50-cent winner. And you know what? I haven't hit any animation, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit my animation. It's about time, I think. I hit my animation for the positions that I've got. There you go, guys. Pew. For all the positions that I've taken and all the winners that I've had so far, apart from the AMC. Man, I got schooled on AMC, but apart from that, everything else working out fairly well for me.
I mean, Arun just sniping over there. And look, I'm glad. Look, I mean, Sean's away, and Arun's doing a fantastic job filling in. For those of you that don't know, Sean's up at the cottage this week. I'm at the cottage next week. And Arun, you're going to get 2 weeks of Arun, which I feel like you ain't going to miss my. I almost said, well, you're not going to miss me next week, I don't think, because Arun on the small caps doing a fantastic job. Like, this was actually a day that I couldn't find my way into, like, the multitude of. Look, I just wanted Coinbase, I just wanted Baba, I just wanted Airbnb, I just wanted AMD. It was hard for me, and even NEO, which was a loser for me, it was hard for me to find my way into the small caps as actively. But I did mention I was going to put a trail on an Alibaba. It's looking like it just broke 173.50 once. Once it holds above there, I'm going to stick that trailing stop in. I don't want to look at gift horse of the month. I want to make sure I take that profit in. There's still a few earnings to get to here, Brendan, and most of them feel like they're still in that retail space.
Yeah, there's a few in the retail names to get through still this week, guys. Less than a minute to go here. Let's have a look at what's coming up tonight and tomorrow morning.
So someone asked a question about, like, what do you think about Gap, Neil? I'm like, let me know. Like, ask me that question after we get some reporting here in Nordstrom. But it's because you get Nordstrom, Urban Outfitters, all going to report here. So you probably want to hold off on making a gigantic bet in that space until you actually get these earnings through. Nordstrom's is poised for a bit of a breakout, as I say that, guys. Like, if it gets to that 37, there is room to run 100%, guys. So, you look at that. That's all I'm going to be interested in. Stick to some of these Chinese names that are moving like gangbusters and the overall market, which is giving you some plays. It is a winner, 100%, not the trade. But what National Day is today is a winner. I defy anybody not to like this one, Miss V.
Hey guys, and now another wonderful day together. I hope you're all having a profitable trades. And thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for 1.7 thousand likes. We appreciate it a lot. Well, we will see you at 3:00 p.m. Eastern Time, and happy National Waffle Day, everyone.
Waffles, and that's the perfect way to do it, right? Like, get some absolute fresh fruit on there. And I'm a bit of a stickler about it. Like, I need some actual fresh, like like the small blueberries are fantastic. Raspberries always a good way to go, and then strawberries. And it has to be, and I know this is going to be the most Canadian thing ever, it's got to be real maple syrup.
Yes, 100% has to be.
Has to be.
Anyone who, I always thought syrup was syrup until I found table syrup. And then I'm like, what? Why? And then I'm like, no. So it has to be real maple syrup. Whether you in the States you're getting it from Vermont, or here we're getting from Quebec, certain parts of the world, certain parts of the country.
You don't have to get, look, Arun, man, I'll hook you up. You don't have to get your syrup from Quebec. You're going to get your syrup from Aurelia, from my in-laws, where everybody should be getting their syrup. Like I said, you guys probably, I married into a, it's not a dynasty. My in-laws actually they get their own maple syrup because they have a bunch of land up there in Aurelia, and it's fantastic. It's delicious. I have an endless supply of it because I'm a very, very lucky gentleman. So I take that and enjoy it heavily. I even put it in my coffee. Brendan, there's a 0% chance you don't like waffles, but we're going to ask anyways.
Sure, yeah, I like waffles. I was going to try there for a second, but I can't.
Can't hate.
I can't. Just a note, GOTU, as we leave here, guys, just ripping on volume. So heads up on GOTU. It's been a fun day for some of these Chinese stocks.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it just feels like the winners keep coming in. Coinbase all starting to flush again, so that's going to work out pretty well. Like I said, we're back at 3 o'clock, and we're going to get right to work on memes and movers for all of you guys. Thank you so much for all of your support. I mean, it's been a fantastic week to start it out. It's only going to get bigger and better. For the entire team, for Miss V, we're green, and again, she's in green. She literally is giving everybody winners by her wardrobe. It's ridiculous that that's actually true, but it is. And of course, we're doing a fantastic job. And for Sean Katina, sipping a beer somewhere, at least I hope he is. And Brendan Wickens, I'm Neil Roberts. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Trader TV Live. See you at the close. Bye, guys.